Picture a world where games bled into reality, and every girl at school is already calling dibs on which genius to confess to. Because 100 years ago, monsters from actual video games broke through into the real world. Humanity had to start awakening combat powers just to stay alive. Grind monsters, switch classes, level up, or get permanently erased from existence. In a world like that, geniuses aren't just popular, they're humanity's entire lifeline. And this fool named Zhang Li, who transmigrated here 18 years ago, has been maxing every skill tree since he could walk. His stat sheet reads like a cheat code. Every single combat category rated excellent. Because the class you awaken into decides your whole life. Basic means you're NPC material, hidden means you're a walking cheat code. Even his teacher is staking his entire reputation on this kid, swearing the boy's potential has no ceiling. But here's the catch, when you're the genius everyone's watching, every insecure meathead within a mile radius crawls out to test you, starting with this walking gym membership named Yan Shu. Golden Domain Bloodline, daddy's a top-tier practitioner, but Zhang Li has been outranking him at every single turn. Our boy keeps it breezy though, says he hasn't even decided what class to aim for. So naturally Yan Shu grabs his collar and promises to humiliate him if he pulls anything weak. Zhang Li just goes, let go, and that stare alone is colder than anything Yan Shu could ever awaken. The meathead lets him walk, but keep your eye on this rivalry because it's going to matter. See, in this world, when a genius fails their awakening, they don't just lose respect, they become the entire school's content. The ceremony kicks off and the very first student up there faceplants on the spot. The instructor, who showed up in a dress that should be classified as a distraction hazard, sends the kid off and calls for the next one. Then the whole arena floods with green energy, and Muon steps out as an advanced swift archer, and brother, the blonde hair, the bow, the aura. The crowd goes absolutely feral because she's the Academy's crown jewel. And right now, she is proving exactly why. Next name called, another burst of light, and Yanshu pulls Flame Mage, an advanced class, then has the absolute nerve to look disappointed about it. 2 advanced awakenings back to back, and this clown is already running his mouth about even bigger things on the horizon. Then looks Zhang Li dead in the face and says effort is a joke because talent is something you're born with. They call his name and Zhang Li walks up like everything in his life has been building to this exact second. Every judge at the table zeroes in and his teacher is white-knuckling the clipboard. He steps onto the platform and the air around him starts pulling inward like a vacuum. Then everything detonates, artifacts spiraling, energy flooding the arena. The kind of display that rewrites history books. Teachers physically launch out of their chairs, papers scattering, because nobody was prepared for this level of power. His teacher can barely hold it together, whispering about the legendary hidden class that nobody has seen in years. Basic Mage. The absolute bottom tier. The class you get when the system gives up on you. And every single judge is sitting there in shock, wondering how the best student alive just rolled the worst class in the entire game. And the first person to twist the knife is exactly who you think it is. Yanshu cackling like he just won the lottery. And within seconds, the whole school is already rearranging their rankings, simps lining up to pledge loyalty to Muon like she's accepting applications. Meanwhile, Zhang Li is standing there in complete silence, while every shadow in the crowd takes turns spitting on his legacy like it's a team sport. And there he is, walking through the arena completely alone, whispers hitting him from every direction like invisible knives. He's standing in the dark thinking, is this really it? Is this where 18 years of grinding just ends? But then something shifts behind those eyes and you can feel it. Because the system just dropped a notification that changes absolutely everything. Special talent, skills automatically max level. This fool is staring at it like, wait, I have never heard of this before. Could this be tied to the fact that I literally reincarnated into this body? He pulls up his skill tree and sees 3 starter spells, but they are not maxed yet. Fireball spell, light armor spell, meditation spell. The absolute starter pack of a bottom tier mage. And then the bars just start climbing on their own. Level 5 to 7 like someone plugged in a cheat engine. He's watching this with his own eyes and his brain is doing full system reboot. Every single bar is filling to the brim, all 3 skills rocketing toward cap simultaneously. Max level. All of them. And now he remembers something his teacher once said. Every class starts with 3 level 1 skills, and when you level them up the power increase is not gradual, it is exponential. But here's the thing, leveling skills is borderline impossible, and almost nobody in the entire world has maxed all 3. And this kid just got them handed to him for free with a grin that says he knows exactly how broken this is. He's standing there realizing that auto-max skills on a basic mage is somehow more overpowered than any hidden class in the game, and fate just slipped him the ultimate consolation prize. But before he can even celebrate, his teacher finds him and grabs him by the shoulders. The principal is out here delivering a whole pep talk about how even a basic class has endless possibilities and all the teachers still believe in him. And Zhang Li, who literally just unlocked God mode 30 seconds ago, smiles and goes, "Thank you, principal, I will keep working hard." The acting on this man is award-worthy because the principal walks away genuinely moved while Zhang Li is hiding the most busted talent in history under that hoodie. Meanwhile, the peanut gallery is still feasting on his downfall like it's the highlight of their whole semester. Because apparently watching a genius crash is more entertaining than watching one succeed. But Zhang Li is already thinking, go ahead, keep laughing. I am about to disappoint every single one of you. Now here's where it gets spicy because they move to the trial shooting range where practitioners test their freshly awakened skills. And guess who is already front and center showing off? Yanshu gathering a fireball so big it belongs on a movie poster. He sends it straight into the training dummy and the thing gets absolutely baptized in flames. His little fan club immediately starts gassing him up like he just single-handedly ended world hunger. But then this meathead spots Zhang Li walking by and you can literally see the bullying instinct activate in real time. He calls out, "Hey you," the ordinary mage with the energy of someone who peaked in middle school and never recovered. Then this absolute psycho launches a wall of fire there just to get his attention while screaming that he's talking to him. Zhang Li barely turns around and just goes, "What?" Yanshu flexes next to his charred dummy and dares the so-called genius to show what a basic mage can do. Zhang Li waves him off and says, "Forget it. I do not need to practice because I am already skilled, and the confidence on this man is criminal." So Yanshu loses it, gets in his face, and starts screaming about daring to compete against an advanced flame mage. Then grabs him by the head and calls him a wimp, which for the record is the worst possible decision this fool could have made today. Because Zhang Li just decided to stop being polite and throws a fireball that sends this man into orbit. And Yanshu, who is currently medium rare, has the audacity to laugh and go, "A basic fireball?" Then the actual fireball arrives. And brother, this thing swallows the entire shooting range like a natural disaster. Yanshu and his little entourage are getting ragdolled through the dirt by a basic mage's starter spell, and the irony is delicious. The entire field detonates in a chain reaction that probably just registered on a seismograph somewhere. Every training dummy on the range gets reduced to scrap in the same blast, and those were built to take hits from advanced practitioners. Yanshu is standing there with his entire worldview crumbling because this was not supposed to be possible. And Zhang Li walks away from the inferno like nothing happened while Yanshu screams about how a basic mage should not be capable of this. But that is the coldest exit we have seen so far, and it is not even close. So this fool gets home and immediately starts doing the math on his mana pool because that nuke at the shooting range ate through half his reserves in one shot. And before he can even sit down, somebody hits him with the classic parent guilt trip of "How dare you come home without calling first?" And then his mom walks in and "Brother, I need a moment," because the artist had absolutely no business drawing someone's mother like this. He sits down to eat and casually drops that he awakened today as a mage like he is not currently the most dangerous starter class user on the planet. And his mom is over here beaming about how mages are great because they get to hide in the back row, which is adorable because her son's idea of back row support is erasing the entire field. But then she pauses mid-dinner and goes, "Oh wait, mom has something for you," and Zhang Li is sitting there with chopsticks in his mouth like, "What now?" She pulls out this sealed box and says it is from your father, who was apparently a powerful professional, and hold on because that is brand new information. Zhang Li nearly chokes because she told him his entire life that his dad died before he was even born, and now she is just casually name-dropping him at dinner. So he starts grilling her, asking if his father was so powerful, where has he been this whole time, and why did he abandon them for 18 years without a single word? And she just says he went to the edge of the world because there were important matters to attend to, which is hands down the most deadbeat dad excuse in fiction. But she begs him not to blame his father because apparently the man promised to make Zhang Li a mage, which is why she pushed mage studies on him his whole life. Then she starts crying, saying, "Now that you have grown up and become a mage, and I swear if this manhwa makes me feel things for a backstory, I will never forgive it." She wipes her eyes and tells him to take the box to his room because mom is tired. And Zhang Li just watches her walk away, knowing she has been carrying this secret alone for years. So now he is standing in his bedroom staring at this mystery box from a father he never knew and trying to figure out what kind of man leaves his family a parting gift instead of staying. He cracks it open and golden light floods the entire room like he just unlocked a legendary chest in the final dungeon. His face goes pale because whatever is inside this box is way beyond anything a normal person should have access to. It is a profession change scroll that upgrades a mage into something called an arcanist, but the requirement is reaching gold level first, and this item might be the single most valuable thing we have seen in this entire manhwa. Zhang Li is sweating because a scroll that grants a special profession is basically a golden ticket to the top, and the only gate is hitting gold rank. Now here is how the ranking works in this world. Normal at the bottom, then iron, bronze, silver, gold, holy domain, and demigod at the peak, and his father was supposedly only gold level, but even that is elite. Zhang Li is thinking there is no way a gold level professional could get his hands on a scroll this rare. So either his mom lied about the rank or his father is something far scarier than she let on. So he slams his fist down and decides the plan is simple. Reach gold level before the professional trial that is happening in Jin City in 7 days because this fool does not believe in pacing himself. Next thing you know, he is out in the city heading toward the wilderness, and some armored clown is already talking trash about ignorant newbies rushing out to die. One of them even wonders if maybe he has some powerful hidden class, and honestly, that guess is closer to the truth than they will ever know. But his buddy shuts that down real quick, saying look how skinny he is obviously just a regular mage, and right when they are done roasting him, a certain redhead enters the frame. She grabs him by the shoulder and goes, "Hey little brother," and when the camera pans up to the full reveal, I need everyone to understand that this woman was drawn with the explicit intent to end lives because Vivi is carrying a sword and enough raw presence to make me forget every character I have ever seen. But her two meathead teammates immediately start whining about how they cannot bring deadweight on their mission and call Zhang Li a burden to his face. Vivi snaps at them, asking why they have to be like this, and honestly she is defending a complete stranger while looking like that, which makes her genuinely dangerous to my decision making. But this idiot just smiles and says thanks for the offer, but he will be fine solo, which is either the most confident or the most suicidal thing a freshly awakened mage could say. Vivi is not having it because she chases after him yelling wait, and Zhang Li turns around with the energy of a man who genuinely does not understand he is being helped by a certified 10 out of 10. She hands him a mana potion and says, since you are also a mage, you will probably need this out there, and she is doing all of this out of pure kindness, which frankly I do not deserve to witness. Zhang Li takes the potion with a big goofy grin and says thanks, completely oblivious to the fact that he just soft rejected the best thing that has happened to him all day, and Vivi waves goodbye with a smile that the artist drew like a personal attack on my well-being, telling him to take care of himself while walking away. Now we cut to the Grey Forest, where the first mob he finds is a level 4 Big Brother goblin, and this thing is built like it has been doing deadlifts with tree trunks since birth. Zhongli peeks out from behind a tree sizing this thing up, and you can tell he is not even slightly worried, which for a brand new mage is certifiably unhinged behavior. He opens his palm and a flame sparks to life because in this man's vocabulary the word subtlety does not exist, and he sends the max level fireball screaming through the forest like a comet with a personal grudge. The goblin barely has time to lift its club before the blast hits it dead center and starts cooking this creature from the outside in. This thing is screaming and swinging its stick while being swallowed alive by flames that no level 4 mob was ever designed to survive, and the entire clearing detonates into a wall of fire that probably just scared every creature in a mile radius into early retirement. Zhang Li is standing over what used to be a goblin and is now a campfire, because a max level starter spell just one-shot a level 4 elite mob and the grind has not even started yet. But the second that goblin hits the floor, this fool hears rustling in every direction, and an entire squad of goblins comes pouring out of the trees because apparently that fireball was basically a dinner bell for every green freak in the forest. But does this maniac panic? No. He goes, "Perfect. Saves me from hunting them down one at a time." One of the bigger goblins charges straight at him screaming bloody murder, so Zhang Li throws up a light armor spell, and the goblin's blade bounces off that golden shield like a Nerf sword hitting a brick wall. They keep swinging and slashing, and not a single hit even scratches the surface because a max level defense spell on a level 1 mob fight is genuinely unfair. And then this fool just grins, flicks his wrist, and goes, "Fireball is back off cooldown." He slams the fireball straight into the ground like he is trying to send these goblins to the Shadow Realm Express, and the entire pack gets barbecued in one shot because Zhang Li does not believe in proportional responses. Level 2. He even admits it himself, this is like dropping a nuke on an ant farm, but the experience points are barely worth the mana he just spent. So he pushes deeper into the forest looking for more victims, and something very large is watching him from above. But Zhang Li is fully locked in right now, sparking up another flame going no matter how many show up, the result is always the same. He snaps his fingers to launch, and then freezes mid-motion because something just went very, very wrong. This genius checks his mana bar and it is completely empty after just 2 fireballs and 1 shield, which means his max level spells are chugging mana like a frat boy at an open bar. Luckily the shield still has some juice left, so he figures he will just beat these goblins by hand and meditate to refill later. So this absolute lunatic picks up a random log off the ground and tells the goblins they cannot break his armor anyway. Then he grips that stick with a grin that has no business being on a mage's face and goes, "Alright boys, let us play." He leaps onto a pile of goblins swinging a tree branch like a baseball bat, talking about "let me show you the power of a melee mage," and cracks a goblin across the skull with the full confidence of a man who has never heard of the word restraint. Except the damage number that pops up is a pathetic -10, and the reality of being a mage with a stick finally hits him harder than he hit that goblin. Does he care? Not even slightly, because 10 damage per hit still adds up when the enemy literally cannot scratch you back. And after what must have been the most tedious grinding session in history, this clown finally wears them all down and hits level 3 looking like he just ran a marathon with a tree trunk. Now he sits down and does the math because he only has 1 damage spell, 2 casts max before he is empty, and needing a shield every fight means the grind speed is absolutely tragic. And right when he is sitting there doing mental arithmetic, something drops out of the sky with weapons drawn. Zhang Li freezes because that sound coming from the darkness behind him is not regular goblin energy, and those red eyes multiplying in the fog are a very bad sign. Because standing right there is a goblin the size of a refrigerator holding an axe that weighs more than Zhang Li's entire future, and the game labels it an elite monster. And what does this deranged individual do? He smiles and goes, "Perfect timing, because elite monsters give way more experience, and that is apparently all the reason he needs." He throws up light armor spell with the energy of a man who has never once considered that something might actually kill him. The giant goblin just looks down at him the way you look at an ant that walked onto your dinner plate, and Zhang Li is suddenly having second thoughts. Because he glances at his status screen and his mana is bone dry, his health is barely hanging on, and the shield he just cast ate the last fumes in his tank. And now he is face to face with a level 10 giant axe goblin with 0 mana, no shield, and nothing but a stick, and the audacity that got him here in the first place. The giant axe goblin brings that weapon down like it's trying to split the earth in half, and Zhang Li barely has time to flinch. The blade craters the ground where this fool was standing half a second ago, and the shockwave alone sends rocks flying like shrapnel. And the big green freak is grinning like it already won, while Zhang Li is standing there going, "Okay, this is going to be a problem, because even dodging costs energy this moron does not have." And the next swing clips him hard enough to rattle his skeleton. And just when he thinks the boss fight is bad enough, a regular goblin leaps at him from behind because he completely forgot about the ads. Now the whole pack is ganging up on him, and this clown has the nerve to yell about being bullied just because he has no mana left. But instead of panicking like a normal person, he starts running combat math in his head and lands on 3 options. First being find time to meditate and refill the tank. Except the goblins are not exactly offering him a spa break, because another one is already midair coming for his throat. He scrambles away, realizing option 1 is completely off the table because there is literally no chance to sit sit still when everything wants to eat you. Option 2, use his one and only mana potion, except it barely restores a third of his bar, which means 1 fireball at best and 0 room for error. Option 3 is the one that makes the most sense. Retreat, recover, and come back to fight another day like someone with functioning brain cells. But this maniac looks at the smartest option available and goes, running away is not really my style, while the giant goblin is literally chasing him through the trees. His reasoning? If he waits 24 hours for natural mana regen, someone else might steal his elite mob, and he would rather die than let that experience go to waste. So this degenerate gamer chugs the mana potion mid-combat like a speedrunner on his final attempt, and his MP bar starts crawling back to life. But the giant axe goblin is not about to let him power up in peace and catches him with a hit that sends the empty potion bottle flying. And right before the finishing blow connects, goblin freezes because its axe just bounced off something it did not expect. Light armor is back online, and Zhang Li is standing inside that golden hexagon shield looking absolutely untouchable with his health bar hanging by a thread. Now here is where this gets genuinely insane, because he is calculating exactly how much mana he can regen with max level meditation before the shield shatters. The goblins are throwing everything they have at the barrier, and this fool calls it a gamble like he is at a casino and not fighting for his actual life. And then this absolute psychopath sits down cross-legged inside the shield and starts meditating while monsters are beating on his barrier like a drum. The giant goblin is fuming at this point, teeth bared, veins popping, genuinely offended that its prey is taking a nap. Every goblin in the pack is wailing on that shield, and the durability bar is melting faster than his mana is filling up, which is not great news. The shield starts cracking, pieces breaking off, and his MP bar is maybe halfway while the shield bar is basically in the red zone. The giant goblin rears back for one final overhead strike that is about to turn that shield into confetti, and the barrier explodes into 1,000 pieces around him, but Zhang Li opens his eyes looking way too calm for someone who just lost his only protection. Because the mana bar has just enough juice, and those glowing blue eyes say one thing, that is enough. And this lunatic has the audacity to look at the goblin and go, getting tired like he was not the one meditating inside a crumbling fishbowl 2 seconds ago. Now it is my turn, he says while charging up a fireball that has no business looking that massive for a guy who nearly died 6 times tonight. He launches that thing point blank like he is trying to file the goblin's insurance claim personally. The fireball connects right on the weak point, turning the giant goblin into the world's ugliest barbecue. The explosion swallows every goblin in the vicinity because collateral damage is just a feature of Zhang Li's combat style at this point. The system pops up a critical hit notification, and this fool is standing in the middle of a burning forest gasping for air like he just ran a triathlon. He wipes his mouth, singed from head to toe, and just goes, "That was close," which might be the biggest understatement in this entire manhwa. But the reward screen hits, and this idiot just jumped 4 levels in one fight, going straight to level 7 off a single elite mob kill. So naturally, the first thing he does is walk over to the smoldering corpse to check for loot because priorities never change with this man. 2 pieces of black iron equipment drop, some gloves and boots, but he immediately starts complaining that his build is still a coin flip between one-shotting or getting one shot. Then he looks at the gear, calls it ugly to its face, and decides to just sell it later because this man has standards even while covered in goblin ash. He runs the numbers again and realizes even at level 7 he still cannot cast 3 fireballs, and grinding small mobs all day is garbage compared to farming elites. So he stands there by the campfire wishing out loud for some kind of cheap wide-range spell that does not drain his entire mana bar in 2 shots. And right on cue, something in the loot pile catches his eye, a skill book, an actual skill book just sitting there like the universe heard his wish and delivered it same-day shipping. This fool's eyes turn into literal stars because not only is it learnable, even novice classes can use it, which means his broke mage build just got a care package. He cracks the book open and electricity starts arcing off the pages before he even reads the first word. Lightning erupts from the book and floods into him like the skill is speedrunning the installation process directly into his brain. Arc lightning, area of effect, chain jumps between targets, half-second cast time, paralysis effect, and here is the kicker. It costs basically 0 mana at max level. Zhang Li is grinning like a kid on Christmas morning because it scales with his level and has crowd control built in, which is exactly what his kit was missing. So he goes looking for test subjects and finds an entire goblin camp passed out around a campfire like they have no idea what is about to happen. Lightning rips through the camp and sends goblins flying like someone plugged them into a wall socket because Zhang Li does not believe in fair fights. The survivors wake up absolutely livid, scrambling for their weapons and genuinely confused about where the thunderstorm came from on a clear night. But this maniac is already charging another bolt, going, one shot was not enough? Like he is personally offended they survived. He fires again without even waiting because the cast time on this spell is half a second, and the cooldown is a joke. Chain lightning bounces between every goblin in sight like a ping-pong ball of pure deletion, and none of them can even move because of the paralysis. Now the damage per hit is not as high as Fireball, he admits that. But when you can cast it this fast, who even cares? Because 4 arc lightnings cost the same mana as 1 fireball but cast faster, cooldown quicker, and he does not have to herd monsters into a group first. This fool realizes he just solved every single problem his build had and now has a way to farm small mobs without burning his entire mana pool on 2 spells. So what does he set his sights on next? The area boss of the Grey Forest. because if one elite gave 4 levels then the zone boss must be a goldmine. But at least this time the idiot learned something, because he sits down under the moonlight to actually top off his mana before picking a fight with something that might kill him. This fool actually found the goblin tribe and is already scoping it out like a delivery driver checking the address before knocking. He creeps up holding a wooden stick like it's going to protect him from anything and goes, "They should all be asleep, right?" His brilliant plan is to tiptoe past an entire sleeping army, find the boss, and just blast it with fireballs before anyone wakes up. And then this genius steps on a goblin. The look on his face is the exact face of a man who just realized stealth was never his stat. Because the goblin he stomped on is now very awake and very confused about why somebody's foot is on its face. And suddenly there's a red-eyed goblin guard towering over the scene looking like the night shift manager who just caught someone stealing inventory. So naturally, Zhang Li handles this with grace and dignity by sprinting through the camp like a man who owes money to everyone here. He catches one of them and grabs it by the head going, "I knew it," like he's testing whether these things are as squishy as they look, which was a mistake because every goblin within a mile radius just heard that and took it personally. The entire tribe is now awake, armed, and converging on this one fool who thought sneaking meant walking slightly quieter. And this moron is running for his life, screaming sorry while also yelling about needing to save mana for the boss, like he's multitasking his panic. One of them catches him with a clean slash and Zhang Li takes the hit right across the back because running in a straight line is apparently his only evasion technique, and that flip switches. He stops running, charges lightning in his palm and goes, "So you want to fight?" like he was not just apologizing 5 seconds ago. He unleashes the arc lightning and the entire forest lights up blue because Zhang Li does not do warning shots. The lightning chains through every goblin in range and their HP bars are evaporating like they owe the electric company. He does not even let up, firing another round immediately because the cooldown on this skill is genuinely offensive to game balance. He's standing in the middle of a graveyard of fried goblins going, "What's with you guys picking on me?" like he's the victim here. But then he looks around at the twitching corpses and realizes the area boss is nowhere to be found. And that is when the ground starts shaking like something under this forest just woke up extremely angry. A shadow the size of a building rises behind him and Zhang Li whispers, "Earthquake." Brother, that is not an earthquake. That is the area boss standing directly behind him with glowing eyes and the kind of energy that says your mana pool means nothing to me. Now here is where things get interesting because we cut to a completely separate group of clowns wandering the forest talking about how practicing out here at night is a death wish. And the leader of this crew is Yan Quan, cousin of Yan Shu, who came out here specifically to jump Zhang Li in the woods because nepotism runs deep in this family tree. Even his own lackey is side-eyeing this plan, asking if Zhang Li is actually stupid enough to still be in the forest this late. Quan hits him with a classic villain close-up and goes, "You don't trust me?" which is never a comforting thing to hear from someone wearing that many spikes. The lackey immediately folds, waving his hands like a man begging not to get punched, rambling about how elite monsters and bosses will destroy entry-level practitioners. But then the ground starts rumbling under all three of them, and suddenly nobody cares about the argument anymore. Quan's face lights up like a man who just found a coupon for someone else's hard work, because he realizes somebody triggered the area boss. He runs the numbers out loud. The area boss is the Goblin Shaman. 3 Black Iron practitioners can barely handle it, so the play is obvious. Let whoever's fighting soften it up first, and then swoop in for the kill steal afterwards. This man is speedrunning every villain trope in the handbook and smiling about it. Meanwhile, our boy is sizing up the Goblin Shaman, thinking it seems weaker than the elites he already fought, which is exactly the kind of confident miscalculation that gets people sent to respawn. The system tag pops up. Level 20 boss, Goblin Shaman. This fool is level 7 fighting a level 20 boss and somehow thinks the vibe check is in his favor. He conjures a fireball and goes, "Oh, you're a mage too," like he's meeting a colleague at a work conference and not a monster that wants to delete him. He dodges the shaman's fire and claps back saying its casting speed is too slow, which is genuinely the most disrespectful trash talk you can throw at a fellow caster. The fireball connects and the system screams critical hit as the entire arena turns into a furnace. The shaman is cooking inside that inferno, and for a second, it actually looks like Zhang Li might just one-shot his own boss at level 7. But then something launches out of the flames at full speed, because bosses do not just lay down and accept fireballs gracefully. Zhang Li throws up his guard and goes, "I knew it wouldn't be that simple, because nothing ever is with this man's luck." A level 5 ice arrow punches through his barrier like it was made of paper, and his HP tanks so hard the warning screen has a warning screen. The shaman is glaring through the residual flames with those red eyes like you thought fire was going to work on me, and it brought backup. 2 goblin priests flanking their boss like bodyguards at a VIP section nobody asked to enter. The shaman chases him through the trees and Zhang Li is running again because his entire combat strategy alternates between aggression and fleeing for his life. Now here is where it gets scary because the shaman starts forming ice crystals the size of daggers with 0 effort, and fires off a crescent of ice magic that carves through the forest like it's trying to renovate the entire landscape. Zhang Li is pressed against a tree doing real-time analysis, figuring out the shaman's cloak has magic resistance, which means his fire damage was getting nerfed the whole time. He checks his stats and the news is brutal. HP in the gutter, MP basically empty, and the boss fight just started. Is this genius strategy or is he just getting punished for overconfidence? But instead of panicking, this idiot's eyes narrow and he decides to try recovering mana before the shaman finds his hiding spot. Too bad the shaman does not care about his recovery plan because ice spears are already slamming into everything around him. The whole forest is becoming a frozen battlefield with ice projectiles raining down and trees shattering like glass while Zhang Li plays the world's most stressful game of hide and seek. The goblin shaman raises its staff and the temperature drops so hard you can practically feel the cold through the screen. It fires a concentrated beam of ice magic straight down like it's trying to drill through the earth to find Zhang Li's hiding spot personally. The blast tears through the forest canopy, and the sheer force of this thing is levels beyond anything Jiang Li has faced tonight. Ice and debris collide in midair, and the entire zone looks like winter decided to invade summer overnight. But while all that chaos is happening, this absolute maniac drops into meditation right there on the battlefield with ice magic detonating around him like fireworks. His eyes snap open, glowing blue, and you already know what that means, because we have seen this exact calm before. Except the shaman is already winding up its strongest attack yet, cackling like it found the funniest joke in the forest, and a wall of ice magic the size of a tidal wave is now headed directly at Jiang Li while he's still sitting there going, "This is bad," which might genuinely be the last thing this idiot ever says. So remember where we left off? Jiang Li sitting in meditation while a frozen apocalypse barrels toward him like a delivery with no tracking number? Well, this fool survived barely, but his stat screen is looking like a bank account on the 30th because his mana is too low to even cast a fireball. So instead of fire, he switches to lightning and goes, "This is all I got right now," like a man paying rent with loose change. And the shaman eats every single volt of it, screaming like it just stepped on a wet floor with socks on. The electricity locks up the shaman's entire body and drops it to its knees like a puppet that just got its strings cut. And now the shaman is looking up at Jiang Li's silhouette like it just realized this fight stopped being funny 3 panels ago. Because Jiang Li just figured out that his max level lightning can paralyze the shaman mid-cast, which means no more ice magic. And this maniac immediately rockets forward thinking, "This is my opening," with zero hesitation and maximum audacity. He rips the shaman's enchanted robe clean off its body like he's collecting taxes and goes, "Without this you can't resist my spells anymore, right?" This absolute menace is grinning ear to ear holding the shaman's own gear and thinking, "Now that I have his equipment, it is my turn to beat you." And he launches at the boss with the confidence of a man who just found the cheat code. The shaman is gasping for air, barely standing, leaning on its staff like a grandpa who walked one flight of stairs too many. But then its eyes go full crimson, and something in those red pupils shifts from fear to rage, because the shaman still has backup and the remaining goblin guards start fanning out through the forest looking for Jiang Li. The shaman spots something and its one good eye goes wide with shock. It catches a glimpse of Jiang Li glowing through the trees, and the shaman is not about to let this kid set up another combo. So the shaman goes nuclear, charging ice magic one more time with everything it has left in the tank, and it deploys a full magic circle barrage, launching an ice spear the size of a minivan directly at where Jiang Li was standing. The ice blades carve through the forest like a blender on max speed, shredding everything in their path. And the impact zone looks like a meteorite just landed, except it is made of pure frozen devastation. The shaman is standing there with ice magic still swirling around its claws, fully convinced it just deleted Jiang Li from the game. But then it looks at the impact zone and those red eyes widen because something is very wrong. The crater is empty. Just ice and rubble and absolutely zero dead mage anywhere to be found. Before the shaman can even process what happened, it hears a voice from behind going, "Where are you looking?" Because Jiang Li is already airborne behind it with a fireball charged and a grin that says you are finished, and he is not wrong. The shaman whips around just in time to see a fireball coming for its face at point-blank range, and there is not a single thing it can do about it. It throws up a goblin defense spell in pure desperation, but remember, Jiang Li already stole the fire resistance cloak, and the barrier shatters like cheap glass as the fire burns straight through it without even slowing down. Critical hit confirmed. The system tags the weak point and the shaman gets cooked inside its own arena like a Thanksgiving turkey nobody ordered. Jiang Li breaks it down standing over the charged shaman. His fireball is maxed out, and without fire resistance, no amount of defense saves you. And then this fool drops the coldest line of the entire fight, standing over the boss with a stick saying, "You are so unlucky to have met me today," and brings the weapon down for the finishing blow. That is the most disrespectful execution in this entire manhwa, and honestly it deserves an award. The system goes absolutely insane. 3 levels gained, current level 10. This man just went from underdog to boss killer in one night. And the loot drops are glowing like Christmas morning because the shaman's staff and a skill book are just sitting there waiting for him. He checks the robe he stole and realizes it was a fire resistance robe all along, which explains why his fireballs were hitting like wet napkins earlier. Only problem is the durability is at 0 now. But the real prize is the skill book, because Ice Arrow just got absorbed directly into his kit at max level. The same spell that nearly ended his life is now his to use. He is holding the skill book grinning, thinking, if a level 5 Ice Arrow almost deleted me, what is a max level 1 gonna do to everything else? Plus the goblin staff has magic penetration built in, which means he can now shred through magic resistant monsters like they are made of tissue paper. This kid's inventory is looking stacked. Here is where the vibe dies completely, because a voice cuts through the forest going, "Boy, do not move, put your hands in the air." And there is Quan rolling up with his goons, who confirm nobody else is nearby and that all of Jiang Li's teammates should be dead. Convenient information to have. Quan walks up with that snake smile and goes, "You just soloed an area boss after awakening. Impressive, but it is a shame you abandoned your team since they were probably stronger than you." Jiang Li throws his hands up confused going, "How do you even know my name?" Because this stranger knowing his identity is raising every red flag in existence. Quan introduces himself all proud as Yan Quan from the Yan family in Jincheng, flanked by his 2 lackeys like a villain who rehearsed this entrance in a mirror. And now the real reason comes out. Apparently Jiang Li used to bully Quan's cousin at school, and Quan is here asking if Jiang Li really thought he could mess with the Yan family. Jiang Li immediately switches to damage control mode, waving his hands going, "Bully him? that is classmate Yan's cousin. I would never dare, with the most unconvincing smile imaginable. Then this coward starts offering up his boss loot as a peace offering, going, hey, take whatever you want, let us be friends, which is genuinely the most pathetic negotiation strategy I have ever seen. Quan scoffs at the offer and Zhang Li is standing there with his hands up surrounded by goons looking like a man who brought a bribe to a robbery. Because Quan drops the pretense entirely, eyes glowing red, asking Zhang Li whether he wants to keep his hand or his leg, and promising to be gentle about it. This man is genuinely unhinged. But that is when Zhang Li's eyes go dark and ice starts forming in both his palms because he was never actually scared, he was buying time. One of the lackeys panics and yells that Zhang Li has been using meditation to recover his mana this entire time, which means every second of that fake surrender was a cooldown phase. Quan does not care though because he is thinking, all three of us are advanced level professionals. What is one entry-level mage going to do? And Zhang Li tilts his head forward with that half-shadow grin and goes, all three of you are advanced level? That is great. Like a man who just found out the buffet is all you can eat. Quan is not having it and charges forward threatening that they will not even give him time to cast a single spell, which would be a solid plan if Zhang Li had not already finished casting. Because Zhang Li unleashes the max-level ice arrow on all three of them at once, and Quan's crew gets sent flying like bowling pins at a tournament they were not invited to. Quan eats dirt so hard the ground cracks beneath him and the ice is still sparking across his body like he got tased by the entire electrical grid. And Zhang Li is just standing over them casually going, you know they say villains die from talking too much, right? Quan is lying there twitching and paralyzed, stammering about how Zhang Li can cast spells that fast, which is genuinely the funniest question to ask after you already lost. Zhang Li lights up another fireball in his palm, looks dead at Quan with those blue eyes and just goes, who knows? The disrespect is genuinely immeasurable. And the entire forest lights up in a pillar of fire that turns the night sky orange because Zhang Li just detonated this man's whole career in one blast. When the smoke clears, all three of Quan's crew are stripped naked and lying in a crater because this maniac looted them down to their underwear and did not hesitate for a single second. This fool is sitting cross-legged with a sack full of stolen gear, grinning ear to ear going, what else is there to grind after the area boss? Robbing people for profit, of course. He has zero moral compass, and honestly I respect it. But then reality hits because he only gained 3 levels from the area boss and this greedy idiot is already thinking about where to grind next. He walks away carrying the goblin staff and all of Quan's belongings, casually narrating how 3 black iron tier professionals tried to rob a newbie and got wiped instead, and that it is simply too embarrassing to even talk about. He makes it back to Rosetown and the streets are quiet, just a few people catching their breath from their own runs outside the walls. And our boy is hauling so much stolen equipment through the streets that he looks like a pack mule with a gambling problem, wishing out loud for a spatial storage item. Until he finds exactly what he is looking for, a place called the Golden Dragon Treasury, and the doors swing open glowing like they are personally inviting his wallet inside. And the first thing he sees when he walks in is a pink-haired shopgirl in an outfit that was designed specifically to make customers forget what they came here to buy because she is asking if she can help him with something. And my brother in gaming, I need her to help me with several things. Zhang Li dumps his entire loot haul on the counter and asks to sell it all while she cheerfully starts sorting through the mountain of gear he just robbed from 3 grown men. She tallies everything up and goes, that will be 972,000 flame dragon coins, but let us round it to an even million for you. And this fool nearly falls out of his chair because 1 million coins just materialized in his bank account. He is doing the mental math in real time thinking, my mom makes 3,000 to 4,000 a month, and I just casually printed 1 million in one night. And now he is already planning to give her a better life, which is genuinely the one thing that makes me root for this degenerate loot goblin. He immediately pivots to shopping mode and asks if they sell skill books, while the shop girl leads him deeper into the store, and somebody with very long purple hair is watching from the upper floor. Keep your eye on that one, because that is Mo Ching Ching, Golden City Academy's certified genius girl, and she just recognized Zhang Li from across the building. And listen, the artist drew this woman with intent to cause harm because she is absolutely devastating. Meanwhile, this oblivious fool has wandered into the library section and is asking for basic mage class skill recommendations, completely unaware that a certified baddie with academy credentials is upstairs thinking about him. She lays out every beginner mage skill they stock and it is all Windblade, Ice Arrow, the usual starter pack, each one running 600,000 flame dragon coins. And Zhang Li chokes because 600,000 per book means his brand new million is basically pocket change in this economy, so he does what any broke genius does and decides to buy something cheap to hold him over until he can afford the real stuff. He takes stock of his kit, Fireball for single target, Arc Lightning for the area nuke, Ice Arrow for burst, plus light armor for defense, and realizes what he is missing is crowd control, so he grabs a slowdown technique book for 600,000. He absorbs it instantly because of course he does, maxing it on contact, and now this kid has a full spell loadout that most entry-level mages would sell a kidney for. But the build is not complete yet because his mana pool is still a bottleneck, so he spends his remaining coins on blue potions like a gamer preparing for a raid, and honestly this level of min-maxing is beautiful to watch. Now here is where the scene cuts to something interesting, because in a private reception room, someone is briefing Mo Ching Ching about a black iron tier dungeon that just appeared in the Gale Plains, except nobody knows where the entrance is yet. Ching Ching crosses her legs and says she will personally lead the search tomorrow, and I need to be transparent with you right now. This woman is sitting there with an energy that would make empires negotiate, and I am respectfully losing composure. But then her mind drifts back to the person she just saw downstairs, because she heard Zhang Li's awakening ceremony went wrong and he ended up as just an ordinary mage. So what is he doing here buying skill books like he has a career? Her butler snaps her out of it going, "Miss, what are you thinking about?" And she jolts back to reality like someone who just got caught daydreaming in class. She goes red and waves it off with the most unconvincing nothing at all in recorded history. And there is no universe where that butler believed a single word of that. Butler smoothly changes the subject and tells her that clearing this dungeon could skyrocket her level all the way to Black Iron tier, which is apparently a big deal around here. And by the time the trial competition hits next week, she would surpass even Miss Li from the Li family, which makes Kingsing smile with the quiet confidence of someone who already knows she is built different. She stands up and orders Fubo to assemble the squad immediately because she is leading them into that dungeon herself. Meanwhile, out in the Gale Plains, a pack of blue Gale wolves is tearing across the grasslands dodging fire and lightning bolts because guess who already found his new grinding spot? Zhang Li is standing on top of one of these wolves, riding the thing like a surfboard while blasting ice and lightning in every direction, and the art on this panel goes unreasonably hard. The wolves have visible health bars now and his magic is shaving them down to nothing because every level he gained translates directly into higher damage output. He flexes arc lightning across his fingers and realizes that at his current power, going back to goblins would be a one-shot massacre, which means these wolves are the correct difficulty tier for grinding. But these wolves are not goblins because one of them lunges from behind with jaws wide open aiming to collect his entire head as a snack. And Zhang Li pops light armor just in time, tanking the bite with a golden barrier that sends the wolf bouncing off him like it just ran face first into a brick wall. But the problem is there are way too many of them because he is surrounded on all sides by wolves that just keep respawning and this fool is thinking it never ends. So he plants his feet and launches forward, charging straight into the pack with his staff crackling blue, deflecting wolves left and right with the energy of a man who treats mob farming like a personal workout routine. He channels arc lightning through the staff and fires it off in a massive wave that should theoretically fry every wolf in the vicinity. Except these wolves are fast enough to actually dodge the lightning mid-flight, splitting apart and weaving through the bolts like they have been training for this exact scenario. And that is when Zhang Li narrows his eyes and realizes these Gale wolves can actually dodge arc lightning, which means raw damage is not going to carry this fight alone. So he adapts on the spot and dashes forward because if they want to play the speed game, he has got a brand new answer for that, throwing out the slowdown technique as a massive purple magic circle rips open in front of him, and this is exactly why he bought it. The wolves hit the binding circles and instantly lock up like someone hit the pause button on their entire existence, trapped in place with purple energy coiling around their legs. He stands there analyzing his new toy, fast cast speed, no visible projectile so it cannot be dodged, but the catch is it only targets one enemy at a time, which means triple casting it on 3 wolves burns a lot of mana. So now it becomes a race, kill the slowed wolves before the free ones close the gap, and he starts charging lightning in his palms like a man with a very tight schedule. After clearing the pack, he immediately chugs a blue mana potion, because the sustain game is real, and those supplies from the Golden Dragon Treasury are already paying dividends. He is leaning against a boulder at level 11 now, grinding efficiency through the roof, grinning about how smart yesterday's shopping trip was, and I will give this moron credit where it is due because his resource management is actually elite. But then his expression shifts because something just stepped into his detection range that is way bigger than a regular wolf. And standing in front of him is a level 20 bloodline wolf, surrounded by its pack, glowing red like it was personally sent here to remind him that the Gale Plains do not play fair, and this is about to be a very different kind of fight. So this bloodline wolf is built like a natural disaster with teeth, and Zhang Li is cowering behind a boulder like a man who just realized his health insurance does not cover this. Because the thing explodes with bloodline energy so violent it rewrites the color palette of the entire battlefield and suddenly everything is lightning and raw power. But does this fool back off? Of course not. He launches himself off the cliffside with fire blazing and goes, "Now let's take out the mother," like a level 11 picking a fight with a raid boss, and he nails the weak spot. Critical hit registered, screen filled with nothing but fire and damage numbers, and somehow this idiot found the one soft spot on a creature built entirely out of murder. The pack is wiped and now it is just him versus the boss wolf, one-on-one, and this maniac is planting his staff in the dirt like he engineered this exact outcome. Except the wolf takes that personally because it rips forward with enough force to split a boulder, and those fangs are not for decoration. So Zhang Li throws up the slowdown technique with a purple magic circle blooming in the wolf's path and tells a creature 3 times his size to behave itself, and the binding magic hooks into the wolf mid-lunge and drives it into the ground like gravity just tripled on command. But this wolf has a phase 2 because it projects a phantom spirit form straight at Zhang Li's face, and suddenly the fight just got a lot more intimate than he signed up for. He's staring at this beast thinking, I genuinely have no idea where the weak spot on a Gale wolf is supposed to be, while the wolf snarls at him from inside its purple restraints. But then the fire ignites in his palm and he gets this grin that says he has already solved the equation without needing the textbook. It's hairy, it's weak, and it's on fire. That is the coldest trash talk ever delivered to a wolf in Manhwa history, and he means every syllable. And the wolf is stuck in the binding circle staring at that fireball with the most personally offended expression a monster has ever produced, like fire is beneath its dignity. Too bad. He drops the fire anyway, and the system confirms another critical hit as the entire arena gets turned into a cremation chamber. 2 levels from 1 kill. Level 13. That boss wolf was basically a walking EXP piñata, and this maniac cracked it open without flinching. Plus, it drops a black iron dagger and a black iron ring, and before the corpse is even cold, this man is already running an appraisal on the merchandise, like a pawn shop owner. First words out of this Luke Goblin's mouth are, "I wonder how much I can flip these for," and at this point, his actual awakened class is not mage. Then the ground starts trembling, and something heavy is tearing through the plains in his direction, getting closer with every second, and it is not slowing down. Zhang Li picks himself up and looks around confused because the Gale Plains apparently enforce a strict no-rest policy on anyone stupid enough to grind here. And the second his eyes lock onto what's coming, every bit of celebration drains from his face because a wall of dust the size of a small city is rolling across the grassland directly toward him. It is an entire wolf stampede, hundreds of them, flooding the terrain like the server just spawned a world event and forgot to warn anyone. He crouches behind cover gripping his new dagger going, "I literally just finished murdering an elite monster. There is absolutely no need for this kind of retaliation." But the wolves are already flooding in from every angle, and he is about to experience what it feels like to be roadkill. He is getting ragdolled through the stampede like a grocery bag in a hurricane while wolves barrel past him on every side. But then mid-chaos he grabs a mana potion and realizes something crucial. These wolves are not targeting him, which hits him like a truck because if they are not here for revenge, then someone else pulled the trigger on something way bigger. His brain connects every dot in a heartbeat. Only the Wolf King can rally a pack this massive, which means someone just triggered the area boss and the whole zone went live. And instead of running the other direction like a sane person, this greedy lunatic sprints toward the boss spawn screaming that the loot is his, and nobody else touches it. Is this bravery or a clinical condition? Genuinely asking. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to a cave entrance where a completely different party just finished clearing something and they look like they survived a car crash with weapons. 3 adventurers at the front, weapons drawn, breathing hard. And the one in the center is an orange-haired girl with green eyes and an outfit that the artist absolutely designed to ruin concentration because she just stole every ounce of my attention from whatever fight scene was happening. But before I can properly lose my composure, the bald captain is screaming at someone about taking advantage of the situation. And the welcome gift is a blade across the swordsman's body because whoever showed up did not bring a negotiation team. The attackers have the nerve to say, "Blame yourselves for being foolish enough to fight a boss without backup. If I do not grab it, who will?" And the confidence on these parasites is almost impressive. Because it is a full-armed squad of bandits announcing that the gear, the Bloodstripe Wolf King's body, all of it belongs to them now. Keep your eye on this crew. Trust me. 3 adventurers look at this mob walking toward them and the math is so bad it might as well be negative. So the captain tries to negotiate, offering everything they earned, the equipment, the Wolf King corpse, all of it, just to walk away alive. And Vivi is standing right there watching her captain fold in real time. But the Mohawk leader laughs and changes the deal. He does not want the gear anymore. He wants the priest, he wants Vivi, and the temperature in this scene just dropped through the floor. And this creature says, "After I have had my fun, I will naturally let you go," with a face that should be on a registry because this entire setup just crossed into territory that requires a legal investigation. Vivi screams for her captain, and this man, this absolute waste of a party leader, mumbles back, "Vivi, do not blame me," because this spineless coward is sobbing about wanting to live and he is genuinely about to trade his own teammate to save himself. Genuinely the most disgusting character in this entire series so far, and there is competition. He reaches for her and she whispers no, and the fact that the danger is coming from her own ally is worse than anything the bandits threatened. She is pressed against the rocks with nowhere left to run, begging them not to come closer, and I need someone to intervene in the next 5 seconds, or this story and I are going to have a serious problem. Hand grabs her and she begs them to stop, and everything about this moment makes my chest tight because nobody is coming and she knows it. Until a bolt of arc lightning carves through the entire bandit squad and every single one of these degenerates just received a voltage bill they cannot afford. Every single face in frame freezes. The bandits, the captain, Vivi, nobody has a clue where that came from. The Mohawk leader is seething with electricity still cooking his scalp, screaming about who dares ruin his good fortune, and this predator genuinely believes he is the one being wronged right now. He slashes through the smoke and sends his remaining goons forward, demanding whoever did this to show their face. Big talk for a man who is just bullying civilians. And stepping out of the firelight with a grin that belongs on a most wanted poster is Zhang Li, casually pointing out that it is not even sundown and they are already committing felonies. The full reveal is him standing wreathed in fire with his skull-tipped staff, asking them if they are really this dedicated to being garbage, and this entrance right here is the hardest thing this series has produced so far. One of the bandits immediately rushes him with a massive overhead swing, and Zhang Li catches the weapon like someone tossed him a drink. He looks the attacker dead in the eyes and goes, "I was not finished talking," and detonates a fireball so massive it sends the man and 3 of his friends into the stratosphere because nobody interrupts a monologue in progress. The bandit leader who is talking all that noise is now on the ground begging for his life, and Vivi is standing right there watching a complete stranger dismantle her entire nightmare in under a minute. And then she looks up at her rescuer with tears still in her eyes and whispers, "Is it you?" Which means this girl already knows exactly who Zhang Li is, and we just stumbled into a history lesson nobody warned us about. And Mohawk over here is finally doing math for the first time in his life, because half his squad just got erased in a single rotation, and he's standing there with his little sword wondering if today was really the day to be a career criminal. But this fool talks himself right back into confidence because in the end, he's just a mage, and apparently in this world that means he should be squishy enough to rush down. So he orders every last bandit to charge Zhang Li at once, screaming not to give him time to cast a spell, and these lemmings actually listen. Except Zhang Li catches fire in his palm like he's warming his hands on a winter night, and casually wonders out loud why every single one of them sprints at him like they have a death wish. and then he serves them a fireball so violent it turns the entire rush into a barbecue convention, while asking if they're genuinely that eager to meet their ancestors. The Mohawk leader barely weaves through the inferno while one of his boys eats dirt face first with his weapon spiraling off into the void like it filed for separation. And this man is genuinely malfunctioning because how does a basic fireball hit like a freight train? He's screaming about how it's just a common mage skill and the damage output makes absolutely no sense because every sword in the bandit arsenal just hit the ground at the same time like a coordinated resignation letter. And Mohawk, the same predator who was about to do unspeakable things 5 minutes ago, is now face down in the dirt screaming that this was all a misunderstanding like he's trying to talk his way out of a parking ticket. Then this absolute cockroach switches to bribery mode, begging Zhang Li to just take Vivi and leave while dropping intel that the Blood Rune Wolf King is deeper in the cave. Zhang Li is done negotiating because he conjures an ice arrow with enough killing intent to freeze the conversation permanently, telling them since they chose violence they better be ready to receive it back. And that ice lance carves through Mohawk's body like a receipt being printed for every terrible thing he's ever done. This fool is spitting blood and still has the nerve to threaten that the Blood Wolf mercenaries will come for revenge, which is genuinely impressive commitment to being wrong about everything. Meanwhile, Zhang Li is sitting cross-legged in a field of unconscious bodies, checking his skill cooldowns like he's reviewing a grocery list, realizing that his level up just massively expanded his spell rotation. And then Vivi walks up to thank him, and I need everyone to understand that the artist chose this exact angle on purpose because she is absolutely devastating from every conceivable direction. She hits him with this smile that could cure diseases and says she didn't expect him to be that strong, that she was worried about him, and my man Zhang Li has no idea the kind of premium quality affection he's receiving right now. And this dense, emotionally bankrupt fool tells her it's nothing, because she saved him before. So now they're even, like he's settling a tab instead of having a moment with the prettiest girl in the entire zone. Then without missing a beat, this lunatic casually invites her to go fight the Wolf King boss with him like he's asking if she wants to grab lunch. And the absolute audacity of this man never fails to impress me. Vivi is internally processing the fact that this maniac just dismantled an entire mercenary squad and is now speed-walking toward a boss fight like he has a coupon about to expire. And honestly, her face says everything mine can't. And then the camera gives us this close-up of her face, with those emerald eyes, and she's wondering if he's hiding some kind of secret class because there's no way someone this young should be this busted. And respectfully, I have also lost my entire train of thought looking at this panel. They step inside the cave, and there it is, the Blood Rune Wolf King, a level 25 boss sprawled across the cavern floor like a nightmare that pays rent in this darkness. Now here's the math that should concern everyone. Zhang Li is level 20 and just hit Black Iron rank, and this oversized dog is sitting 5 entire levels above him with a boss multiplier on top of that. Vivi voices what every rational person is thinking and asks if 2 people can actually kill this thing, which is the most reasonable question anyone has asked in this entire series. But Zhang Li's answer to impossible odds is always the same. We won't know until we try, and he opens with a fire lance straight at the Wolf King's face because subtlety was never in this boy's vocabulary. The explosion fills the entire cavern with heat, and for half a second it looks like maybe this fight will be easier than expected. Except the system gives him nothing. No critical hit, no weakness indicator, which means fire against this thing is about as effective as throwing a warm towel at a tank. And the Wolf King takes that fireball personally because it erupts through the flames screaming about intruders meeting their end. And this thing can talk, which somehow makes it 10 times more terrifying. Zhang Li is standing below this building-sized monstrosity, genuinely shocked that a boss mob has enough intelligence to form full sentences, but his brain catches up fast. Fire is not the answer here, however the Wolf King doesn't have magic resistance either, which means this fight just became a different kind of puzzle. So he switches the entire game plan on the fly and casts a slow spell that wraps the Wolf King in purple chains of energy because if you can't burn it, you control it. The debuff connects and the Wolf King is visibly lagging, purple energy binding its movements while blood sprays from the accumulated damage, and for the first time this monster looks like it can actually be brought down. But a slowed boss is still a boss because this thing rips through the debuff and charges with enough force to crack the cavern walls, while Zhang Li barely gets his light armor shield up in time, and the collision nearly empties his entire health bar in one shot, the shield cracking like cheap glass, and the danger warning is flashing because this is no longer a fun experiment. Zhang Li is scrambling backwards, realizing his shield almost shattered from a single hit, and even with the slow spell active, this thing moves like it skipped the nerf entirely. The 5-level gap is not a joke. So he shifts to ice, channeling a frost arrow onto his staff that crystallizes the air around him because if brute force won't end this, then precision has to. And this is where Vivi earns her spot on the team because she throws a magic amplification buff on him that doubles his offensive output, and having a support class that looks like that is genuinely the greatest party composition in gaming history. The buff hits Zhang Li like a performance-enhancing patch from the developers themselves, golden aura merging with ice energy, and this man just got upgraded mid-combat in the most satisfying way possible. Except the Wolf King reads the trajectory like it's been fighting mages its whole career and sidesteps the enhanced ice arrow completely while Vivi watches in horror because that was their biggest play. But Zhang Li is already grinning because that miss was the entire plan, frost gathering in his fingers as he whispers that he knew it would dodge, and this calculating little psychopath just baited a level 25 boss into a trap. Because the real attack slams into the Wolf King's weak point with a critical hit notification, and Zhang Li delivers the coldest one-liner of the fight, saying he learned this bait technique from bosses exactly like this one. Turns out this genius mapped the wolf-type weak spot from all his previous fights. The vulnerability sits right at the waist, and Vivi is standing behind him looking at this fraud of a mage like he just solved a puzzle she's been stuck on for weeks. The Wolf King is staggering now, red energy pulsing through every vein, breathing heavy with hatred, and something about that posture tells me this fight is about to shift gears in the worst possible direction, because this overgrown mutt throws its head back and howls with enough force to shake the entire cavern, and if you've played any game ever, you know exactly what that animation means. Vivi screams for Zhongli to watch out, because the boss just triggered its berserk phase and the entire cave floods with red energy, which is the universal sign for your difficulty setting just jumped 3 tiers. And here's where it gets genuinely ugly, because the Wolf King didn't just power up, it called for backup, and an entire pack of blood wolves materializes from the ground like the raid boss just opened the floodgates. Zhongli immediately recognizes these wolves as the same ones that stampeded past him earlier, which means the Wolf King was the one pulling their strings this entire time, and he just walked into the Puppet Master's living room. The Wolf King stands behind its army with the smegest energy a monster has ever produced, because this boss doesn't just fight, it commands an entire ecosystem of violence. But Vivi steps up behind him, casting mana regeneration and slow debuffs on the incoming horde, and the way she operates as his support is genuinely making this the most synergized 2-person raid I've ever witnessed. Zhongli faces down the Wolf King and its entire pack surrounding him on a blood-red magic circle, and this shot right here might be the most suicidally brave thing he's done so far, which is saying an extraordinary amount. Then he detonates the whole pack in one rotation of fire spells, and experience notifications start raining down like confetti at a graduation party he threw for himself. This man is farming the ad spawns like they're bonus content and realizes the cave's tight walls mean every spell connects with maximum value, turning the Wolf King's own reinforcement strategy into a free experience buffet. And then the real galaxy brain moment hits him. Summoning all those minions in this cramped cavern actually slowed the Wolf King's own movement, meaning the boss played itself harder than any debuff could. So this absolute madman looks the Wolf King dead in its glowing red eyes and tells it to use that summon skill one more time if it wants to keep breathing, because he just turned the boss's ultimate ability into his personal power leveling service. The Wolf King's response is nothing but pure unbridled rage, because no human has ever had the audacity to mock its signature ability, and this monster is about to stop holding back entirely. It lunges with everything it has left, claws ripping through the air toward Zhongli, who is getting pushed back by the sheer pressure of a boss that's decided diplomacy is over. But Zhongli catches the opening in that reckless charge, fire spiraling in his palm as he whispers that the right moment has finally arrived, and he unloads everything into one devastating blast that swallows the Wolf King whole while his level ticks up to 14, and the howl echoing through that cave is either a death cry or the sound of the fattest loot drop this series has ever seen. The experience notifications are still popping off like a slot machine that forgot how to stop, because this fool turned the Wolf King's own minions into a personal leveling service. And even Vivi is soaking up passive experience just from existing nearby, which might be the most relatable gaming strategy I have ever witnessed. Level 15 hits, and Zhongli is standing in the middle of a wolf graveyard with his staff glowing like a man who just discovered the infinite money glitch, while Vivi watches from the sidelines, still processing what she just witnessed. This maniac chugs a mana potion like it's a pre-workout shake and immediately yells for round 2, because apparently slaughtering an entire wolf population was just the warm-up set. And then the realization hits him like a freight train, because if the boss can keep summoning minions with this much experience value, why would he ever waste time grinding regular mobs in the open world? The Wolf King is standing there trembling, because every single minion it summoned has been evaporated, and this overgrown mutt is finally asking itself who the real predator in this cave is. Zhongli hits it with the most casually devastating shrug in combat history, basically telling this level 25 raid boss that its usefulness has been fully extracted and there's nothing left to discuss. So he charges up one final ice arrow with the energy of a man collecting a severance package, because the Wolf King has been milked dry and now it's time to cash in the last receipt. The ice arrow screams across the cavern, and the Wolf King is literally calling him a devil now, which coming from a demon wolf boss is honestly a 5-star review. This thing takes the ice arrow clean through its body and screams that he's nothing but a devil, and honestly that's the most accurate character assessment anyone in this manhwa has given so far. The entire cave starts collapsing around them, and Vivi jumps to level 21 from the shared experience alone, while rocks rain down like the dungeon itself is trying to applaud. Zhongli pops to level 16 with a grin on his face, bragging about gaining 3 whole levels and a mountain of loot from a single cave run, while Vivi sits there genuinely bewildered at the haul this lunatic just pulled. And Vivi is sitting there asking the question every viewer already knows the answer to, because she watched someone exploit a boss's summoning skill as a personal experience farm, and now she's wondering who the actual boss of this cave was. Then this doofus waves her over all casual, like he's about to show her a cool rock he found instead of the spoils of a raid boss assassination. He hands her a glowing magic staff and says it's her share of the loot, and she's covering her mouth in genuine shock, saying she didn't even contribute anything, which is the most adorable thing to come out of a blood-soaked wolf den. But Zhongli shuts that down immediately, telling her she restored his mana and boosted his damage, and that she's an excellent support who he needs by his side for future dangers, and this fool has zero clue how hard those words just hit. Vivi clutches that staff with the energy of a woman who just received a marriage proposal, thinking to herself that she's actually important to him, and the artist decided this was the panel to remind us all that she was designed to devastate entire comment sections. They start walking deeper into the cave, and Jiang Li pulls up his inventory to check 2 skill books the Wolf King dropped, Lightness Spell and Swamp Spell, because this man treats post-boss loot review like a kid opening birthday presents. Both skills are sitting at max proficiency already, which explains why the Wolf King was still moving through his slow debuff earlier, because this thing had a built-in speed hack through the Lightness Spell the entire time. And then the Swamp Spell catches his eye because it can lock down multiple enemies at once, and you can practically see the spreadsheets forming behind those eyes as he files this away for the next group of unfortunate mobs. Vivi suddenly yells for him to come look at something, and this girl sounds way too excited for someone standing in a cave full of wolf corpses. It's a ghost orchid, a glowing purple flower that looks like it belongs in a fairy tale and not wedged between the rocks of a murder cave. Jiang Li immediately starts appraising it like an antiques dealer, explaining it's worthless to professionals, but for regular people, it's a top-grade cure-all medicinal herb, and Vivi's already calculating the profit margins with dollar signs in her eyes. He splits them evenly, one for each, and Vivi thanks him with the warmest smile this series has produced, and these two are doing couple activities in a wolf crypt, without a single ounce of self-awareness. Then Jiang Li gets real for a second, holding the orchid close and explaining his mother is an ordinary person whose body has been breaking down from years of hard work and chronic illness. He says he hopes this can ease her pain even a little, and Vivi is watching him with those soft eyes, and honestly this man just went from raid boss slayer to filial son in 3 seconds flat, and somehow became even more attractive for it. But the emotional moment gets cut short because Vivi spots a glowing rock wall deeper in the cave, and drags Jiang Li over to investigate, because apparently this cave just keeps giving. Jiang Li tells her to stand back while he lights up a fireball to breach the wall, and the way he shifts from sentimental to combat ready gives me emotional whiplash. The explosion cracks the wall wide open, and both of them are standing in front of a blazing hole that definitely was not on the original cave tour. And what they find on the other side makes both of them freeze, because this is not just another room. It's a dungeon secret realm, a swirling portal crackling with blue lightning that looks like someone left a gateway to a harder difficulty setting just sitting in the back of this cave. The system tags it as a level 25 black iron dungeon called Dark Altar with hard difficulty limited to players level 23 and below in groups of 2 to 6. And this idiot is already doing the mental math on whether he can solo it at level 16. Vivi, being the only person with functioning survival instincts, suggests they go back and prepare first since they literally just fought a boss. But Jiang Li immediately shoots that down with the confidence of a man who treats danger like a buffet. He tells her she can leave if she wants, but if she follows him in there, he'll protect her. And that line delivery would make any woman in a 100-mile radius reconsider their life choices. Vivi hits him with the most radiant face this manhwa has ever produced, glowing like the sun itself endorsed their party composition, and says that's good to hear with the voice of a woman who would follow this fool into actual hell. She pumps her fist and declares she'll buy him time if danger comes, and the artist chose this exact moment to draw her in an outfit that makes it physically impossible to focus on the dialogue, which I fully resent and appreciate simultaneously. They step through the portal and land in a dark forest with a system telling them to stop a dark mage named Garubi from completing a ritual, which sounds exactly like the kind of quest that gets parties wiped at 3 in the morning. But Jiang Li hears dark mage and his brain immediately translates that to mage equipment drops, and you can see the greed light up behind his pupils like a search engine indexing loot tables. This maniac immediately takes off sprinting into the dungeon, yelling about how excited he is while Vivi chases after him begging him to slow down, and this is the most unhinged duo to ever enter a hard mode dungeon. Then suddenly his expression snaps serious and he grabs Vivi by the wrist, pulling her behind a tree and whispering to hide, and the speed at which he switched from giddy child to tactical operative is genuinely concerning. Vivi is pressed up against the tree, confused about what's happening, while Jiang Li peers around it with the intensity of someone who just spotted something they really did not want to run into unprepared. And what he spotted is a level 20 skeleton knight riding a ghost horse made of blue fire, and this single regular mob looks like it should be the final boss of a different, easier manhwa. Jiang Li immediately notices that even the basic trash mobs in here are level 20, and starts recalculating his life decisions while crouching behind a tree with a girl who trusts him way more than she should. But there's not just one of them, there's a whole patrol of skeleton knights and shadow warriors, and instead of running, this clown is salivating over the rewards this dungeon must offer because his risk assessment capabilities are permanently offline. Except the stealth phase lasts about 4 seconds because both of them get spotted, and the look on their faces says the hiding plan just went catastrophically wrong. The skeleton knights come charging in, screaming about spies and swinging weapons with the hospitality of a home security system set to lethal, and Jiang Li barely gets into a fighting stance in time. Lucky for him, these bone soldiers fight like NPCs on their first day of training because they telegraph every attack, and if they had even a fraction more intelligence, this fight would have ended before it started. So this is the moment he decides to test drive the swamp spell from the Wolf King's loot, slamming his staff into the ground and painting the entire battlefield green, because why read the manual when you can field test during live combat? And the skeleton knight's horse sinks straight into the muck like it's quicksand with a grudge, bones rattling as both rider and mount get completely immobilized mid-charge. Now here's where this fool gets creative, because he follows the swamp with a fully charged fireball in his palm, and the look on his face says these trapped skeletons are about to learn what happens when crowd control meets area damage. The fire fire detonates across the swamp zone and bones scatter in every direction like someone threw a grenade into a Halloween store. The fully upgraded swamp spell covers a massive 30-meter radius, which means this one ability just turned Zhang Li from a single target assassin into a walking war crime against anything with legs. He stands over the sinking skeletons casually, noting that he never has to fight one-on-one again, and the bony fingers clawing out of the swamp beneath him make this the most disrespectful victory pose in the series so far. Then they both hear something deeper in the forest, and Vivi asks if someone else could be fighting a boss in here because there's no way they're the only two crazy enough to enter this dungeon. Zhang Li puts it together instantly, figures other intruders must have triggered the dark mage early, and tells Vivi to wait here while he goes to investigate alone because this man's solo mission addiction is clinically diagnosable. What he finds is a full party of armored knights getting absolutely destroyed by skeleton mobs, and their tank is screaming for someone to use a teleportation scroll because this group is seconds away from a total wipe. And right in the middle of this disaster is a purple-haired woman who just walked into my life and immediately rearranged every priority I've ever had. Because she is built like the character designer's personal magnum opus, Skeleton Knight crashes down on the bodyguard with the force of a freight train made of bones, and he barely gets his shield up before getting hammered into the dirt. Another skeleton charges in for the finishing blow, and the bodyguard's eyes go wide because his shield arm is done and there's nobody left between this bone cavalry and a very bad outcome. But Zhang Li slides in with the light armor spell and intercepts the killing blow like he's been saving this entrance for maximum dramatic impact, which, knowing this show-off, he absolutely was. The purple-haired goddess turns around and the name that comes out of her mouth is Zhang Li, and the shock on her face tells me she already knows this fool from somewhere, and their history just became the most interesting subplot in this dungeon. The lead knight recognizes him too, calling out Zhang Li from the academy with the tone of someone who cannot believe the weakest kid in class just body-blocked a level 20 skeleton. And then he remembers that Zhang Li literally just awakened a few days ago, which means this knight is doing the math on how a brand new professional is standing in a hard mode dungeon blocking attacks that nearly killed him. The knight steps up and tells Zhang Li these monsters are beyond beginner abilities and they can't waste time babysitting him, which is the single most confidently wrong thing anyone has said while actively being rescued. Zhang Li thanks them for the concern with a smirk that could melt steel because he's about to embarrass every professional in this clearing and he already knows it. Tells them not to trouble themselves and unleashes a firestorm that swallows every skeleton in the vicinity like the entire forest just received a deletion notice. The skeleton cavalry charges through the flames anyway because the undead don't know when to quit, but they're running directly into a wall of fire that turns bone to ash on contact. Experience plus 40 per kill, stacking 4 deep in a single rotation, and this man just collected more experience in 5 seconds than these elite knights earned in their entire dungeon run. He scratches his head with the most unbothered expression imaginable, says done, and the system announces level 17 like it's reading a receipt at the checkout counter of absolute dominance. The knight who just told him to leave is standing there with his jaw somewhere near his ankles, stammering about how he defeated all of them with a single move, and the cognitive dissonance is genuinely breaking this man's worldview. And the purple-haired vision of perfection whispers that it's truly impressive, with golden eyes sparkling like she just found exactly what she was looking for, and the way the artist drew this panel should require a prescription. The knights immediately switch from "we don't need you" to "we could totally do that too" and start yelling at him to leave, which is the most embarrassing display of cope I've seen from armored professionals. But Purple Hair walks right up to Zhang Li with zero hesitation, saying she knew she wasn't wrong about him, and this fool has no idea who she is because his social awareness is permanently set to offline. Then it clicks and he goes, "Oh, you're Mo Qingqing, the genius girl who's on the same level as Li Moen," which means this woman is certified academy royalty and she's been keeping an eye on him this whole time. King warns him the dungeon is dangerous while her knight mutters from behind that Zhang Li only finished off monsters they already weakened, which is the funniest lie ever told by a man who was face down in the dirt 30 seconds ago. The knights puff up their chests claiming they're elite Black Iron rank members, and he shouldn't worry about them, and the amount of misplaced confidence in this group could power a small city. Zhang Li couldn't care less about their credentials and just turns to leave because he has a boss to find, and these NPC tier bodyguards are burning his clock. He glances back one more time, mentally notes that these people struggle with basic mobs, and confirms they won't be competition for the boss loot. But Qingqing chases after him and drops the bomb that he's probably not even Black Iron rank yet, and the way she phrases it tells me she's about to offer something he can't refuse. This fool casually drops that he's already level 17 and it shouldn't take long to rank up, and Qingqing is standing there processing how a guy who awakened days ago is already threatening her bracket. The shock on her face is legitimate because level 17 in a few days with power that embarrasses Black Iron professionals is the kind of growth rate that breaks ranking systems, and she's trying to figure out if she's looking at a prodigy or a glitch in reality. So she pulls out a glowing pendant from between her collarbones, asks him to help clear the dungeon, and I need everyone to understand that the camera angle the artist chose for this negotiation should be classified as a war crime against concentration. She reveals the payment is a Black Iron promotion gem that she pulls directly out of the pendant like a magician, whose entire trick is making men agree to things they haven't fully thought through. Zhang Li's eyes go wide for the first time in ages because that pendant is a spatial storage item, which means this woman is walking around with inventory space hanging from her neck, and the implications of her wealth just became very relevant. He stares at the crystal pendant still resting against her skin, and his brain is doing calculations about how much that storage item alone must cost while being in absolutely no position to be staring at that particular spot. Both of them are blushing now because she's holding out the gem and he's staring, and neither of them is equipped to handle whatever tension just materialized in this dungeon clearing. She clutches her chest and tells him to stop staring at it, and the ambiguity of what it refers to is doing catastrophic damage to this man's reputation. She explains that reaching Black Iron rank requires either passing the Black Iron trial or using a promotion gem directly, and honestly at this point she could be reciting a phone book and Zhang Li would still be listening. His gamer brain kicks back online and he realizes the gem is normally too expensive to justify using, but at his leveling speed he'll cap at 20 before the dungeon ends, and all that extra experience will be wasted without a rank promotion. So he agrees to help but immediately tells King to send her bodyguards away because he refuses to share experience with dead weight, and the main knight nearly pops a blood vessel at the audacity. The bodyguards immediately revolt, saying there's no way they'll let their lady follow some random alone into a dungeon, and honestly from their perspective this does have an alarming number of red flags. But King crosses her arms, tells them she's bored of their company, and orders them to leave immediately, and the authority in her voice just reminded everyone that she's the one signing their paychecks. The lead knight begrudgingly agrees but says they need to at least test Zhang Li's strength first before leaving their lady with some academy freshmen in a murder dungeon, which is actually the first reasonable thing this man has said. He draws his sword and points it at Zhang Li from across the clearing, demanding to see what he's got. And Qing is just standing there watching this unfold like she ordered entertainment with her dungeon run. Zhang Li lights his palm on fire and tells him since he wants a test, then he better be ready because holding back isn't really in his vocabulary. And this is going to be the shortest sparring match in recorded history. Meanwhile, Vivi finally catches up and the girls are introducing themselves, with Qing learning Vivi's real name is Shu Wei. And now we've got two gorgeous women bonding while their shared man is about to demolish an armored knight 20 feet away. And Qing narrows her eyes noticing how close Vivi and Zhang Li seem, and the jealousy detector just spiked because this harem is forming in real time, and Zhang Li has absolutely no idea the kind of war that's about to start over his oblivious head. Qing immediately latches onto Zhang Li's arm to discuss something privately, and Vivi's face goes full alarm mode because the territorial marking just began, and this fool is standing there like a parking space two women are fighting over. The harem drama gets shelved real quick, because a level 27 boss called the Skeletal Dog Chieftain materializes from the darkness wrapped in purple energy, and this thing makes the Wolf King look like a house pet. And right as this nightmare steps into frame, Zhang Li realizes something insane about his abilities, that he can use two skills at the same time, and the combination might create an entirely new kind of power that nobody in this world has ever seen before. This absolute maniac launches a fireball the size of a minivan and casually tells the knight his attack might be slightly oversized, so please bear with it for a moment. The knight is standing there with his shield up watching a sun-sized inferno descend on him, and all he can mutter is that this is a mere beginner-level mage, and the realization hits him mid-sentence because no beginner should be able to conjure a fireball that could barbecue a city block. This man's entire career just flashed before his eyes, and his last words are going to be, "This is the end," repeated twice for dramatic emphasis because once wasn't pathetic enough. The fireball dissipates behind him, and this knight who was genuinely writing his will 3 seconds ago has the nerve to say, "Let's call it quits here," like he had any say in the matter. Zhang Li flicks the last ember off his fingers with the smuggish grin and tells him if he still wants to continue then by all means go ahead, which is the most disrespectful mercy I have ever witnessed. Now here's where the cope reaches clinical levels because this knight turns around and says your abilities are commendable although slightly weaker than us, and that they're lucky he didn't act seriously. The knights bow to King and announce they'll take their leave, and the speed at which these grown men retreated from an academy freshman should be studied by military historians. And the moment the escorts disappear, Vivi comes sprinting out of nowhere and latches onto Zhang Li, begging him to take her along next time because she was terrified. And this fool just tells her he'll try his best. But Qing is watching Vivi cling to him, and those golden eyes are running a full background check because she distinctly remembers never hearing about Zhang Li having a girlfriend, and this closeness is not sitting well with her. The girls properly introduce themselves, and Qing says she's in the same class as Zhang Li, while Vivi chirps that she goes by Shu Wei, and this idiot is standing between them with absolutely no idea he's the territory being contested. Qing narrows those gorgeous eyes and mentally logs that they seem quite close, which in girl language means she just promoted Vivi from acquaintance to rival. So this woman immediately hooks Zhang Li's arm and says she has something to discuss with him privately, while Vivi's jaw drops so hard it nearly leaves her face because the territorial escalation was instantaneous. Qing brings up his troubled awakening, and this dense brick actually tells her with a straight face that he's merely an ordinary mage while standing next to a woman whose entire outfit is a declaration of war against my focus. But he follows it up by saying you don't need a special profession to become strong. And the way she's looking up at him right now tells me this is landing exactly the way main character dialogue is supposed to land on a beautiful woman. And he hits her with the close-up smirk and says he has his own way, and I genuinely need this man to understand that he is accidentally speedrunning this woman's heart without a guide. A moment later, this fool activates lightness spell on his feet and kicks the grind back into gear because romance is temporary but experience points are forever, and he is just annihilating skeleton mobs left and right. Experience plus 40 popping off like confetti at a parade, and the system tells him he's hit level 18 like the dungeon is his personal treadmill. Meanwhile, Vivi and Qing are hiding behind a bush watching the forest burn, and Qingqing asks if he's always been like this while Vivi casually admits it startled her at first too, like they're discussing a quirky pet. Qingqing's analytical brain kicks in and she notices every single skill Jiang Li uses is beginner level, but the output is hitting way above that bracket, and the contradiction is eating her alive because the math does not math. Now here is where things get spicy because the level 27 skeleton knight commander finally steps out of the shadows riding a skeletal horse and wrapped in enough purple energy to power a haunted house for eternity. But Jiang Li sees the boss tag and his eyes light up like he just found a buy one get one free sale, pulls up a swamp spell magic circle, and casually asks if the dungeon has other bosses like he's browsing a menu. Commander charges in with its skeleton cavalry and Jiang Li declares that no matter how many come it's all the same, which is the kind of sentence that either makes you a legend or gets you immediately hospitalized. The swamp spell glues every skeleton minion to the ground like quicksand made of pure disrespect, and Jiang Li announces that as long as he uses control skills properly, these calcium boys are nothing to him. But the commander breaks free from the swamp and locks its red-eyed glare onto him with the kind of intensity that says, "I am not your regular trash mob," and it blindsides him with its skeletal mount slamming into him at full speed, and the impact sends Jiang Li reeling because he severely underestimated the mobility of something that shouldn't even have muscles. The blow launches him through the air and Qingqing screams his name, which means the danger just went from manageable to genuinely concerning, and the commander pivots straight toward the girls because apparently this thing prioritizes defenseless targets, and Vivi is screaming because a horse-mounted bone warrior just added them to its itinerary. Vivi steps up and tells Qingqing to go save Jiang Li while she handles the distraction, and keep your eye on this girl because she just volunteered to face a boss 10 levels above her and didn't even flinch. Qingqing's eyes are full of fear and she admits she's terrified, but something in her expression says she's about to push through it anyway, and that single look just made me respect her more than every knight combined. But before either of them has to do anything stupid, a massive ice lance rips through the clearing, and Jiang Li's voice cuts through the chaos telling them there's no need. The ice spear connects right with the commander's skull face and the impact cracks through its helmet like a baseball bat through a pinata. Jiang Li is already back on his feet, staff in hand, blue energy crackling around his body like the hit just made him angry instead of injured, and Qingqing is asking if he's alright like she didn't just watch this man get tackled by a horse. Turns out his lightness spell was still active when the hit landed, and if it hadn't been, that wouldn't have been just a scratch, which means plot armor came through wearing a buff icon this time. He takes a second to mentally note that the boss has long-range attack methods he wasn't expecting, and there's a cut on his cheek that tells me this fight just earned its difficulty rating. Vivi immediately runs up and pops her healing magic on him, and honestly this girl providing the clutch sustain at every critical moment is the reason this party hasn't wiped 3 episodes ago. With health topped off, Jiang Li dashes straight back toward the commander in a blur of blue energy because this lunatic processes near-death experiences as motivation. And then Qingqing does something incredible because she clasps her hands and channels a golden light so radiant, it turns the whole battlefield into a cathedral, chanting about blessing allies and shrouding enemies in vulnerability, and the artist drew her glowing like an actual goddess, which is frankly rude to my cardiovascular system. The golden light explodes outward across the entire forest like someone cracked open a second sun above the tree line. The commander and its mount start staggering under the holy energy, and this is the opening because someone yells that now is the perfect moment for group attack magic. Jiang Li charges up arc lightning spell, wrapping himself in enough electricity to power a small nation, and this panel goes hard enough to be a wallpaper, and he sends the combined holy lightning devastation straight through the commander like a billion-volt eviction notice that rips through everything in its path. Jiang Li and Vivi both react to the damage spike, with him gasping that the damage increased, and Vivi identifying it as the blessing of holy light buffing his output. Vivi breaks down the mechanics because her support brain never turns off. Explaining the blessing adds holy attribute damage to allies, slaps vulnerability and blindness on enemies, and multiplies everyone's output several times over. And that's when it hits Vivi that Qingqing possesses a special profession called Holy Priest, which means this purple-haired miracle worker is packing the single most busted support class in the entire game, and she was hiding it behind those eyes this whole time. Is there anything about this woman that isn't absurdly premium? But the commander shakes off its paralysis status and starts recovering because level 27 bosses don't go down from one combo no matter how cool it looked. Jiang Li immediately calls for Qingqing to reapply the blessing while Vivi starts stacking his magic damage, and now this 3-person squad is operating like a raid team that has been running together for years, except the commander is done playing defensive and charges directly at the backline because this thing decided if it can't kill the damage dealer, it'll delete the supports first. The commander swings its massive weapon down with the force of a collapsing building, and the ground shatters beneath the impact. Qingqing and Jiang Li block it together with a wall of holy energy, and the boss recoils screaming impossible because it just realized this budget party has no business surviving that swing. The commander's skull cracks under the counterattack, and for the first time this boss actually screams in genuine pain because holy damage against undead is basically a cheat code. A pillar of holy light erupts through the entire forest canopy, visible from probably outside the dungeon, and it is gorgeous enough to feel like a cutscene. When the dust settles, the commander is panting and battered, barely holding together because its entire health bar just took a trip to the Shadow Realm. And this busted pile of bones has the audacity to yell, "Stop searching," like it's trying to delay the inevitable. but Jiang Li has already found what he's looking for. Because our boy drops from the sky directly above the commander with his weapon ready and screams, "I'm right here," with the energy of someone who has been waiting his entire life for a moment exactly like this. And the finishing blow carves through the commander's body like a scalpel through paper, ice energy detonating through every bone in its skeleton until there's nothing left worth reanimating. Jiang Li lands in the wreckage of the commander's shattered body and declares victory is theirs, and the level 27 boss that was supposed to be the dungeon's nightmare just became a footnote on his experience log. The system dumps a mountain of rewards on him. Level 20, a C-grade skillbook called Bone Spear spell that creates weak point targeting projectiles, except his skill slots are maxed out and now he has to figure out which ability to sacrifice for the upgrade. The catch is the skill requires Black Iron rank to learn, so all he can do is hold it for now. And that's when Qingqing walks up behind him with a shy little. She pulls out the Black Iron promotion gem and hands it to him as an advance reward, saying getting stronger benefits their dungeon raid and he wouldn't want to miss out on future experience, which is hands down the smoothest investment pitch a woman has ever made in a murder forest. Then she adds with a blush and sparkles literally materializing around her that he should just call her Qingqing from now on, and the artist surrounded this panel with so much soft lighting that my screen fogged up. This blockhead grabs her hand in a firm clasp and says thanks. He owes her one, with zero awareness that the hand-holding just sent this woman's pulse into orbit. He keeps going and promises to repay her twofold later with a genuine smile while Qingqing is covering her face trying to survive the proximity, and the flower petals in the background are doing more shipping than the actual dialogue. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, the lead knight gets the news that they left the young lady alone in a dungeon with some random guy, and his reaction to this information should be framed and hung in a museum of regret. He storms to the dungeon entrance where the other knights are standing and screams, "Have you lost your minds?" with the energy of a man whose paycheck just evaporated before his eyes. One of the knights tries to calm things down, saying Jiang Li is a novice but quite strong and he probably won't run into trouble, and the question mark at the end of that sentence tells you even he doesn't believe his own copium. And that's when two new faces show up, an older veteran called Uncle Fu and a stocky kid with goggles, who immediately yells that something is wrong. And the fact that reinforcements are arriving with concern means the situation is about to get significantly worse, because the system just pushed a notification that the dungeon difficulty has been upgraded to abyss level, and Uncle Fu immediately commands all elites under level 25 to follow him because the lady is in danger, which means whatever difficulty curve existed just got deleted and replaced with a death sentence. Back inside the dungeon, Vivi is perched on a branch keeping watch while Jiang Li channels energy below and Qingqing stands guard, but something just triggered Vivi's senses because she snaps around asking who's there. And what steps into frame is a massive clawed foot wreathed in dark energy, and a voice from the shadows asks if they're the intruders, and the scale of that foot alone tells me this is not a mid-boss encounter. The thing opens its mouth, rows of jagged teeth grinning, and compliments them for defeating its minions before dropping a however that carries the weight of a funeral invitation. The full reveal drops and it's a level 30 boss called Dark Mage Garubi looming over all three of them, declaring this is where they meet their end. And the level gap between this thing and our party is enough to make a speedrunner cry. Qingqing's face twists with genuine terror because a dungeon boss actively hunting down intruders is not normal behavior, and the rules of this place just stopped applying. To make things infinitely worse, Jiang Li is sitting cross-legged channeling the promotion gem's energy in the middle of a rank breakthrough, and Qingqing realizes that disturbing him right now could actually kill him, so their main DPS just became a sitting duck. Qingqing grits her teeth and says they need to stall for time, and that's when armored boots land behind her and the knights announce they've arrived because Uncle Fu's rescue squad just cleared the dungeon at maximum speed. Uncle Fu rushes in, asking if the lady is alright, and Qingqing calls out his name with so much relief that you can feel the weight lift off her shoulders as actual competent fighters finally enter the scene. The reinforcements charge the boss immediately, and even Garubi registers their presence with a mutter of reinforcements, which means this demon was not expecting a full party to show up to a 3-person ambush. But Garubi is not impressed in the slightest, calls them annoying pests, and starts casting Rock Spike spell because a level 30 boss treats reinforcements like appetizers. Purple crystal spikes erupt from the ground like the earth itself is trying to impale every knight simultaneously, and bodies go flying in every direction. The lead knight picks himself up from the rubble and taunts that the boss has impressive rank, but that's all it's got, which is the second time this episode this man has talked trash to something that outclasses him, and I'm starting to think he has a condition. Garubi's response is to conjure a massive sphere of darkness above the knight's head, so large it blocks out the sky, and the knight can only look up and whisper what. And from that dark sphere erupts something that makes the skeleton knight commander look like a tutorial enemy. A colossal demon crashes into the arena with enough force to crater the ground. The system tags it as a lower demon lord, and the thing roars, "Who dares summon me?" while the kid with goggles screams its name in pure terror because a deep abyss demon just got added to an already unwinnable encounter. Garubi kneels before the demon and says, "My lord, these souls are the sacrifices I offer to you," which means this boss just sold every human in the dungeon as a buffet for a creature 3 weight classes above anything they can handle. The demon glances at the humans and sneers merely these mortals with the energy of someone who just opened a gift they find deeply underwhelming. It laughs and says they're not even fit to fill the gaps between its teeth, while the knights and mages on the ground are openly accepting death with a collective, "It's over, we're all dead," and honestly the morale check just came back negative across the board. But then a voice cuts through the despair asking who's becoming a sacrifice, and the demon actually turns around confused because someone in this pile of mortals just addressed it like an inconvenience rather than a death sentence. Zhang Li rises from his breakthrough with a system notification announcing he has been promoted to Black Iron level. His skill slots expanded by 1, and he can now cast 2 skills simultaneously, and he tells everyone to fight back because the war just changed. The camera locks onto his glowing blue eyes, and he declares that the outcome remains undecided, and this single close-up carries more authority than every knight in this dungeon combined. Uncle Fu recognizes the Bone Spear spell as a deep abyss demon technique and wonders who this mysterious kid is, but still questions what a lone Black Iron mage can possibly do against this. What he can do is launch a volley of bone spears directly at a demon lord like he's filing a complaint with the Underworld Postal Service, and the spears actually pierce through the demon's flesh, drawing blood from something that considered every human here a toothpick, and the surprise on its face is worth the price of admission. The demon's expression shifts from amused to absolutely furious, and it roars you seek to die with the kind of rage that makes the air itself flinch. Uncle Fu is genuinely shocked that the bone spear wounded it, but the veteran in him knows it's not enough, and he makes the call to risk everything today because half measures against this thing just means dying tired. He rallies every fighter left standing and orders a full assault, declaring they must protect the lady at all costs. And for the first time, these guards actually look like soldiers instead of decorations. The entire squad unleashes everything they have, and fire magic detonates across the demon's body like someone threw a fireworks factory at a brick wall. Uncle Fu turns to Zhang Li and shouts for him to take the lady to safety, and the fact that this old warrior is choosing to stay behind against a demon lord so the kids can escape is the kind of sacrifice that actually hurts to watch. He stands in the flames with his blade drawn and says he entrusts this to Zhang Li, and the quiet acceptance on this man's face just told me he has no intention of leaving this dungeon alive. But Garubi is done tolerating insects and charges a purple energy blast so massive it warps the space around it, screaming about dwarf ants, because the final boss just decided playtime is permanently over, and the energy detonates across the entire battlefield in a wall of purple annihilation. And whether Uncle Fu survives this, whether Zhang Li can protect both girls, and whether a freshly promoted Black Iron Mage can somehow outrun a demon lord, all of that just became the only thing keeping me from sleeping tonight. Uncle Fu rips through the purple haze with his blade drawn and roars the order to attack like a man who already made peace with what comes next. And the collision between his golden slash and the demon's purple apocalypse detonates across the entire arena like two gods having a disagreement. When the dust settles, Uncle Fu is still standing, barely gasping for air with his sword trembling in his grip and purple residue crackling around him. But the old man is bleeding through his armor and cursing the demon through gritted teeth because he put everything into that exchange and it still was not enough. So Uncle Fu does what any real one does when the math stops working. He decides to burn his entire kit on one final technique and buy the lady time even if it costs him his life. He launches into the air and calls out Sword of Judgment, raising a golden blade above the demon lord's skull like he's personally delivering divine punishment. And the blade actually connects with the demon lord's guard, sending golden sparks flying off its armored skin while the thing reels back genuinely caught off guard. But the counterattack hits Uncle Fu before he can even celebrate, ripping through his guard and sending pain through every fiber of his body. The demon lord palms Uncle Fu like a basketball and asks if that's all he's got. And the size difference alone makes this look like a grown man disciplining a house cat. It backhands him across the arena with the casual violence of someone swatting a fly off a dinner plate. Uncle Fu ragdolls through the air screaming, and that impact has the kind of crunch that tells you Bones just filed a formal complaint. Qingsing screams his name with pure terror in her voice, and even Zhang Li's expression shifts because watching the strongest fighter on your team get folded like laundry changes the math fast. Someone screams for Uncle Fu to retreat as the demon lord advances through the destruction like gravity itself decided to walk forward. The demon towers over Uncle Fu's broken body and sneers that they overestimate themselves while the old man can barely lift his head. But before the killing blow lands, a glacier's worth of ice rips through the air in the form of a massive crystal lance aimed directly at the demon's exposed flank, and it slams into the demon lord with enough force to actually stagger this walking mountain of muscle, which is the first time anything has genuinely interrupted its rhythm. Zhang Li locks eyes on the opening and shouts that now is their chance while Uncle Fu lies wounded below, and this fool is about to solo tank a raid boss that just wiped the entire team. Uncle Fu barely scrambles clear as Zhang Li draws aggro from the demon lord, running underneath the thing's fist like a matador with absolutely nothing to lose. The demon lord's face twists into pure rage, and it snarls who dares with the kind of indignation reserved for a king who just got slapped by a peasant. And there stands Zhang Li, freshly promoted Black Iron Mage, gripping an ice-coated spear wrapped in blue energy, and telling the demon lord he will handle it personally. The audacity on this man is weapons grade. He launches into the demon at full speed, carving into its body with his spear while simultaneously barking orders for anyone wounded to patch themselves up because this lunatic is multitasking a boss fight. Uncle Fu shouts at him demanding to know why he came back instead of escorting the lady to safety and insists they will handle the fight from here. Zhang Li shuts that down immediately, saying there is no need because he has already figured out how to actually damage this thing, and the confidence in his voice is borderline clinical. Even Garubi is shook, bleeding from the face and wondering how a mere Black Iron Mage can possibly dual cast spells because that should not be physically possible at his rank. And what they are watching is Zhang Li merging two different magical elements into a completely new hybrid power, coating his spear in crystallized ice. The Demon Lord does not appreciate being experimented on and roars about filthy creatures with the kind of genuine offense that tells you its ego just took critical damage. It dives straight at Zhang Li, screaming about unforgivable sins because apparently being a black iron mage who punches above his weight class is a federal crime in the abyss. But Zhang Li activates his agility technique and weaves around the demon's fist like it is moving in slow motion, and the gap between where that punch landed and where he is now is genuinely disrespectful. Then he goes on the offensive, chaining hit after hit with his ice spear into the demon's wings, while it screams because he is carving this thing up like a Thanksgiving bird. And then this absolute menace has the nerve to smirk and tell the demon its wings are its weak point. Am I right? Like he just answered a pop quiz about demon anatomy. The demon's wings are shredded, and Zhang Li casually informs it that it cannot use magic anymore while the thing stammers, asking how he knew that because its entire playbook just got deleted. This moron starts monologuing mid-fight about how the academy taught him anti-demon strategies because abyssal demons are humanity's greatest enemy, but privately he is thinking the demon heart location is random, so this still comes down to luck. But both demons start laughing because Garubi reminds everyone that their recovery powers are formidable, and these trifling wounds will heal up in no time, which means the clock is ticking against our side. Now here is where it gets absolutely unhinged, because Garubi suddenly rushes toward the Demon Lord, screaming about needing to regain its power immediately, and even the Demon Lord looks surprised. Garubi begs its lord for mercy while the entire party watches in horror because whatever is about to happen, it is not good for anyone standing on two legs. The Demon Lord grabs Garubi and starts consuming its own subordinate like a protein shake because apparently loyalty in the abyss has an expiration date and it just ran out. Garubi gets devoured screaming, and the demon crunches through its minion's power like someone eating chips during a horror movie, except this time the demon is the movie. The Demon Lord's body starts bulging with absorbed power, muscles swelling as dark energy pours into every fiber of its being. And the system drops a notification that makes my blood run cold. The Demon Lord has entered its second phase, extremely dangerous, and now this thing is staring down the party with rage that could melt steel. It screams, "Die, insignificant human," and fires a beam of concentrated purple destruction directly at Zhang Li. The blast sends Zhang Li skidding across broken earth like a ragdoll, and for the first time this fight our boy is actually on the defensive with no clever answer. He is thinking fast, calculating that his max level agility can keep him alive, but his armor spell cannot take a direct hit from this thing's upgraded output. But then golden light washes over him and the system starts screaming that his magic attack power just doubled, then tripled, and the source is King standing center stage with the entire party behind her, glowing like a beacon, stacking buffs on top of buffs while the system log goes absolutely berserk with numbers. Defense up, speed up, vitality regenerating. This girl just turned Zhang Li into a walking cheat code. The Demon Lord notices the buffed up party glowing in the distance and for the first time registers actual confusion because a group of ants just turned on their high beams. It dismisses them as meddlesome fools and charges forward because in its mind phase 2 means the conversation is over. Even Zhang Li feels the pressure spike and mutters that this is bad, and when our boy admits something is bad, you know the situation just graduated from dangerous to catastrophic. The demon screams for them all to die and dives at the party, but Zhang Li's speed boost just hit 300%, so this idiot blurs across the battlefield like he uninstalled his hitbox. He plants himself directly between the demon and the girls, spear out, shield up, and the fact that both Qingqing and Vivi are standing behind him while he faces down a raid boss is doing dangerous things to this man's protagonist stock. He activates light armor technique and a golden defensive matrix explodes around his fists, with the system confirming defense and shield power just doubled again, making him an actual walking fortress. The demon's massive strike collides with his guard and the shockwave flattens trees for meters behind him, but this fool holds the line. But wait, it gets worse, because the demon starts transforming again, its skin turning sickly green and dripping with some kind of toxic sludge like it just crawled out of the nastiest swamp in the entire underworld. The demon's feet splash into green acid and it suddenly looks confused because the ground beneath it is not supposed to feel like quicksand. Because Zhang Li already set the trap, he yells for it not to move as a golden spell detonates around the demon's body, locking its joints with paralysis and action restriction. Zhang Li stands in front of the entire squad and says, "Now let me show you with the calm energy of a man about to demonstrate exactly why you do not mess with his party." He drops another fusion spell called Thunderstorm Swamp, combining arcane lightning with swamp magic, and the demon gets electrocuted inside its own prison while trying to rip free. The Demon Lord is stuck, lightning arcing through its body, growling that it cannot move. And this is the first time in the entire fight that the power balance has actually flipped. Uncle Fu seizes the moment and orders everyone with enhancement items to dump every last buff onto Zhang Li because he is their only win condition, and the system logs start climbing to 600, 700, 1000% attack power. That is not a stat buff, that is a war crime. The demon sees Zhang Li approaching and charges an energy blast in its mouth, screaming about daring to come forward. Because even trapped it still has enough firepower to vaporize a city block. It fires the blast point blank and calls him foolish as red energy detonates across the arena, and for a second it looks like Zhang Li just got erased from the timeline. But our boy tears through the blast with a flaming spear technique so powerful the fire spirals around his weapon like a drill aimed straight at the demon's torso. And it connects, the fiery spear punching clean through demon flesh, and that 1000% attack buff just made itself felt. The demon screams petty tricks while trying to grab at him, but the fact that it is calling a spear through its ribcage petty tells you the ego on this thing has its own zip code. A volley of fire-infused bone spears launches like a missile barrage aimed at every vital point Zhang Li can identify, and they all hit, drilling through the demon's body from multiple angles while blood sprays everywhere, and this thing finally starts looking like it can actually be killed. Then Zhang Li notices something and casually points out that the demon keeps guarding its head with suspicious dedication. The demon scoffs and says, "What does it matter if you know," while desperately blocking its head from an explosion that just detonated across its skull, which is the verbal equivalent of hiding a safe behind a painting and saying what's safe. Zhang Li drops his newest combo on the demon's face. Explosive Bone Spear, a fusion of Bone Spear and Fireball that detonates inside the wound like a grenade in a mailbox, and the demon's head disappears behind a wall of fire. He follows up instantly with a massive Ice Lance formation, shouting that this is his moment, and drives the frozen payload straight at the exposed demon heart. The Ice Lance detonates inside the demon's skull, and the scream that follows shakes the entire dungeon to its foundation. Vivi and Goggle Kid peek out from cover, asking if it is finally over, and honestly I need it to be over because my heart has been running a marathon for the last 40 panels. It is not over. A glowing red eye pierces through the smoke and the demon starts laughing, and that single eye carries more menace than every villain I have ever watched. The demon emerges from the dust saying too bad, still towering over Zhang Li, who looks absolutely tiny at the base of this thing, and the demon lord still has enough health to trash talk. It gloats that what just happened was their only chance to defeat it, and they blew it, and the ice lance stuck in its body is pulling out like a splinter from a redwood tree. But then its voice cracks because it notices its wounds are not regenerating, and it starts screaming, "What have you done to me?" And the panic on a demon lord's face is genuinely a new flavor of satisfying. Zhang Li's face fills the frame with the smudgiest grin I have ever seen on a black iron mage, and he says it is just a simple slowing spell. This man poisoned the demon's healing factor while it was busy monologuing, and that is the coldest play of the entire series so far. The demon calls him despicable, and asks if he really thinks little tricks can handle a demon lord, but the sweat dripping off its face says those tricks are working perfectly fine actually. Zhang Li holds up his hand, crackling with ice energy, and casually asks, "Oh, don't tell me," with a grin that belongs on someone about to deliver the worst news of the demon's very long life. He asks if the demon really thought he only fired one arrow, and ice lances that were hiding in every blind spot suddenly activate and pierce the demon from 6 different directions at once like a scheduled demolition. The lances detonate through the demon's core simultaneously, and it can only choke out how could as its body ruptures in every direction, and this is what happens when you underestimate the quiet kid who studied for the test. The demon lord explodes behind him, and Zhang Li stands in the aftermath saying done, while the system casually announces he just jumped 5 levels to level 25 because apparently soloing a demon lord comes with premium experience. The entire party celebrates with level up notifications raining down on everyone, 2 levels each across the board, and Vivi shouts that it is finally over. That demon lord just became the most profitable piñata in dungeon history. Uncle Fu watches Zhang Li from a distance and privately notes that this young man will definitely become a world-shaking powerhouse, and that for now they need to stay in his good graces. Smart man just mentally promoted Zhang Li from hired help to future investment. Meanwhile, Zhang Li is doing his own math, realizing that black iron mages technically should not be able to dual cast, and wondering if having all his skills at maximum level unlocks some kind of hidden passive. This fool glitched the system and does not even fully understand how. 2 of the bodyguard knights start running their mouths saying that with that many buffs even they could have taken the demon, which is the most delusional copium I have witnessed from side characters in any manhwa. Vivi and King walk up to Zhang Li, and King tells him to ignore her bodyguard's nonsense while Vivi says they owe everything to him this time. Both girls approaching the protagonist after a boss fight. The harem ritual is progressing exactly on schedule, and then this oblivious king casually asks what their plans are after the dungeon, completely unaware that he is being courted by 2 women simultaneously, and the question itself just raised the stakes. Vivi gets all sparkly and says she wants to train more before joining him again, and asks if they can run dungeons together once she is stronger. The artist surrounded this girl in so much soft lighting that my screen needs to be toweled off, and she is looking entirely too good for someone who just survived a near-death experience. Then King leans in with cherry blossom petals literally materializing around her and says she also wants to be with him next time. And Zhang Li just blinks and says with me like the most romantically illiterate man on the entire planet. Uncle Fu swoops in to translate for the emotionally stunted, explaining that the young lady is formally inviting him to her mansion, and King walks away beside him looking embarrassed. This old man just wingmanned his own mistress and deserves a raise. Zhang Li grins with his arm behind his head and says he will definitely attend, completely missing the romantic subtext, while accepting what is essentially a date invitation as a business appointment. Uncle Fu walks him over to a pile of glowing loot so valuable it has its own light source, and tells him the spoils belong entirely to him since he practically soloed the boss. The demon dropped a golden treasure chest, and this man is about to eat. First pull is a silver quality Shadowfang staff and a gold quality demon cloak that comes with a passive called Demon's Eye that detects stealth units, and Zhang Li is now geared up enough to make most silver rank players look like they are wearing bathrobes. But the real prizes are an Abyss Pass that grants entry to the first layer of the actual Abyss, and a gold quality Abyss Stone that can upgrade any equipment directly to gold rank. This man just hit the gacha jackpot without spending a single dime. Uncle Fu nearly has a stroke when he sees the Abyss Stone, explaining that this gem can turn garbage tier gear into the best of the best, but they need a top blacksmith to embed it, and his hands are literally shaking holding this thing. And this is where we learn that Blue Star has an entire crafting economy with chefs, alchemists, and blacksmiths who serve as the backbone of human civilization even though they never throw a single punch. Keep your eye on this detail because it is going to matter. Uncle Fu drops a lead on a steward named Lin at the Golden Dragon Treasure Pavilion, who apparently knows the best blacksmith in the entire city, and Jiang Li perks up because that is exactly where he was heading anyway. The party splits up on a forest path with goodbyes echoing from both sides, Xing waving, Vivi looking back, and Jiang Li heading toward Golden Dragon Treasure Pavilion with a new staff, a demon cloak, and a key to the abyss burning a hole in his inventory. This man's shopping list just became the most dangerous errand in the city. So this fool finally reaches the Golden Dragon Pavilion in Rosetown, and the place is glowing under moonlight like it belongs in a luxury catalog. And the first thing that greets him inside is a pink-haired attendant in what I can only describe as the most strategically minimal outfit the artist could get away with, telling him to wait a moment while she sways away on heels that should require a license. They escort this man to the VIP room, and Jiang Li's staring up at a chandelier that costs more than everything he's ever owned combined, genuinely doing mental math on the decorations. Manager Lin waddles in looking like a jolly merchant straight out of Central Casting, round belly, bow tie, the whole package, and Jiang Li wastes zero time saying he's here to unload some gear. Lin starts tallying, and the pile of bronze equipment alone comes to 25 million, which is the kind of number that turns a black iron mage into a man who eats at restaurants with tablecloths. But then Lin gets to the Shadow Stealth skill book and the silver quality Gale bow, and his tone shifts because he flat out admits he can't price these two items on the spot and suggests Jiang Li trade them for something instead of cash. And the bunny girl attendant is hovering behind them looking very invested in this transaction. Speaking of which, she's standing there gasping about how this is the biggest deal she's ever witnessed, and I need you to understand the artist framed this woman's reaction like it was a cologne advertisement. Jiang Li rattles off his shopping list like he's placing a drive-through order. List the items for barter, grab any mage skill books or equipment, and toss in a bronze promotion orb while you're at it, deduct from my balance. The attendant nods and heads off to process everything while manager Lin watches her go with his hand placed somewhere that HR would definitely have questions about. Lin leans in over his teacup and casually asks what he should call his new favorite customer. And the second Jiang Li gives his name, something lights up behind those round little glasses because Lin immediately recognizes that reaching this level just 2 days after awakening is completely unheard of in the entire city. Jiang Li narrows his eyes and asks how exactly Lin knows when he awakened. Lin drops the mask and reveals that the Golden Dragon Pavilion runs an intelligence network so thorough that if you've got the coin, they can dig up anything on anyone, and the silhouettes of informants behind him sell that threat beautifully. Now here's where Jiang Li shows he's not just muscle and mana, because instead of getting spooked, he immediately pivots and asks Lin to hook him up with a blacksmith who can set a gemstone, and Lin grins saying he happens to know a master. The attendant comes back to deliver the barter list, and the camera angle she walks in at is a direct assault on everyone watching because the artist clearly decided her entrance needed to be framed from below, and I am not complaining. On top of the trade goods, she hands Jiang Li a purple gold dragon card that gives him 10% off everything at the pavilion permanently, which means this man just speedran his way into a VIP membership by selling dungeon scraps. Then she opens a box and presents the bronze promotion orb, glowing blue and nestled in velvet like a jeweler presenting an engagement ring, and I am trying very hard to focus on the orb and not on what's directly above it. Jiang Li slaps his hand on the table like a man who just decided something. Manager Lin locks in the price at 16 million for the orb, telling Jiang Li to consider it a friendship discount, which is the kind of generosity that only happens when a merchant smells long-term profit. Jiang Li does the quick math in his head. Market price is 20 million. The card would bring it to 18, but Lin just shaved off another 2 million on top of that, and this fool is already calculating how to keep this relationship profitable long-term. So he tells Lin straight up that from now on, anything he needs sold comes here first, and Lin's beaming like Christmas came early because he just locked down the fastest growing client in Jin City. Lin also drops the blacksmith Led, a gold-level craftsman named Wang Yun, who happens to be in town stationed at the Wenxiang courtyard on the east side, and all Jiang Li has to do is mention Lin's name, because the attendant helpfully stands there reminding me she exists with every breath. Jiang Li thanks him, offers to pay for the intel, and Lin waves it off like it's nothing. But make no mistake, that man is investing in Jiang Li's future returns, and he knows it. The next day, our boy rolls up to Wenxiang courtyard and immediately gets denied at the door because the master has ordered no visitors, which is the kind of welcome that tells you the blacksmith has main character syndrome of his own. Jiang Li pulls out the abyss stone, glowing red and radiating enough demonic energy to make the air hiss, and tells them he needs Master Wang Yun's help setting this gemstone. He name-drops manager Lin from the Golden Dragon Pavilion and asks the guard to pass along the message, while in the background you can hear the forge still hammering away. A voice from inside shouts to let him in, and the guard snaps to attention like a soldier who just remembered his boss can hear everything. And there he is, Master Wang Yun, built like someone who's been hammering metal since before Jiang Li was born, shirtless with muscles that have muscles, red beard, and a headband that's seen more sweat than a gym towel. Jiang Li butters him up about being the best blacksmith in Jin City, and Wang Yun dismisses the flattery immediately, cuts straight through the pleasantries and asks what gemstone needs setting, because this man values his time. The second Wang Yun lays eyes on the abyss stone, his whole demeanor shifts because this is a gold-level gemstone and the man looks like he just found water in a desert. He admits that even a gold-level blacksmith like himself rarely gets to touch gold-quality materials, and he's eyeing Jiang Li with genuine respect now, saying the kid clearly has some serious connections. But then his face goes dark, because the failure rate on directly setting a gold gemstone is extremely high, and Wang Yun tells him straight up to prepare himself for the possibility that this priceless stone gets turned into expensive gravel. But instead of leaving it there, the blacksmith grips the stone with conviction and proposes a deal. He has a weapon that's almost complete but is missing one critical ingredient, the tooth of a thunder crocodile leader, and getting that material would not only finish his blade but also boost the gemstone's success rate. Zhang Li asks if Wang Yun wants him to go fetch it, and the blacksmith says not necessarily, because the thunder crocodile leader is a crafty beast that hides deep in the thundering marsh and actively avoids anyone above black iron level, which means every high-rank hunter that goes looking comes back empty-handed, while the croc just chills in its swamp like it's on vacation. But Zhang Li, being a black iron mage himself, realizes this is actually perfect for him, and says if it boosts the success rate, then obviously he'll give it a shot. This maniac tells Wang Yun he's leaving right now and to just sit tight for good news, and Wang Yun's laughing behind him because he clearly did not expect someone to accept a marsh-crawling fetch quest with this much enthusiasm. But he barely makes it down the street before a group of armored thugs blocks his path, shouting, "Hey kid, and keep your eye on this one because trouble just picked the wrong person to find." The big one, absolute unit in full armor, starts describing some young warrior he's hunting, 25 years old, piercing triangular eyes, fierce warrior spirit, and the way he describes this target sounds personal. Zhang Li gets a quick flashback of some warrior getting wrecked in combat and casually asks if they mean that guy with the exact energy of someone who does not care about their problems. He says no and tries to walk away, but the armored gorilla grabs him by the collar, shouting wait, because apparently their leader's youngest son got killed. The evidence points to a mage, and since Zhang Li happens to be a mage standing in public, the Bloodwolf mercenary group has decided he's the prime suspect based on vibes alone and threatens to show him the meaning of cruelty. Zhang Li stares this mountain of muscle dead in the eyes and says no means no with the kind of calm that only comes from someone who recently soloed a demon lord. He turns his back and walks away while Chen Dongxi is behind him, and that cape flowing in the wind is doing more disrespect than any insult ever could. This bald clown decides that a mage who won't cooperate needs to taste some bitterness, and takes off after him like consequences don't exist in his worldview. Nearby bystanders start whispering that the big guy is Chen Dong, deputy leader of the Bloodwolf mercenary group, and that their leader's youngest son died horribly, so everyone connected to them is out for blood. One brave local mutters that the Bloodwolves have been bullying this entire city, and sooner or later someone's gonna put them in the ground where they belong. His friend immediately slaps a hand over his mouth because the Bloodwolf leader is a high-ranking bronze professional, and they've got an army of bronze fighters ready to flatten anyone who talks reckless, which means this group is basically the local mafia. Meanwhile, Zhang Li glances back, already putting the pieces together that he stirred up something annoying. And the thing about Zhang Li is that annoying is the strongest emotion these people will ever get out of him. He reaches the thundering marsh and the place is crawling with massive insects and creatures that make the local wildlife look like a pet store with anger issues. This lunatic immediately starts treating the marsh like a training ground, unleashing a massive golden spell circle that vaporizes everything in a wide radius. Rain of Fire. That's the spell name, and it does exactly what it sounds like, carpet bombing the swamp with fireballs until every creature in the area regrets being born flammable. He's standing in the middle of a burning forest, wielding his new Shadowfang staff with fire swirling around him like a black iron mage has no business looking this terrifying. And yet here we are. The grin on his face says it all because this spell's area damage is monstrous, clearing monsters faster than Arcane Bolt ever could, and he just unlocked his personal lawnmower setting. Then something rustles in the bushes nearby and Zhang Li stops mid-grind. His expression hardens instantly because he realizes somebody is tailing him through the marsh. And remember that demon cloak he got from the boss fight? The passive called Demon's Eye that detects stealth units? It just activated and the timing could not be more perfect. There it is, a glowing blue silhouette crouching in the bushes, an assassin in full stealth mode who thought they were invisible, and Zhang Li can see every single outline of their body like they're highlighted in a video game. Before he can deal with the stalker, a massive wave of green water erupts from the marsh and blindsides him because the swamp itself apparently has opinions today. A level 29 green Veen Serpent King rises out of the water like a building with scales, and Zhang Li's first thought isn't fear, it's disappointment that this overgrown garden hose isn't the thunder crocodile he came for. He sighs and notes that the thunder crocodile leader isn't easy to find after all. The Serpent King lunges at him mouth first with fangs the size of short swords and zero respect for personal space. Zhang Li dodges the strike and starts carving into the serpent, trading blows with a creature 4 levels above him like it's a warm-up round before the real hunt. And while he's mid-fight, the cloaked assassin is still watching from the bushes with a blade drawn, which means Zhang Li is fighting a boss monster with an enemy player in the spectator seats waiting for the right moment to strike. Zhang Li turns directly toward the hiding spot and tells whoever's lurking to stop playing invisible and come out, and the assassin's shock bubble says everything about how badly they just got exposed. The cover is blown and out steps the Bloodwolf squad with Chen Dong leading the pack, laughing about finally finding the little runt, and oh look, an elite monster too, how lucky for them. Whole crew rolls an arm to the teeth, calling the murder of their leader's son unforgivable. And Shendong is looking at Zhang Li like the verdict was decided before the trial even started. Zhang Li doesn't flinch, he just looks at them and calmly asks if they have any proof, which is genuinely the coldest response to a group ambush I've seen in this series. Shendong slams his colossal weapon into the ground hard enough to crater it and delivers the most brain-dead villain line of the year. If I say you killed the person, then you killed the person, because apparently due process isn't in the mercenary handbook. Jiang Li summons a wall of ice lances behind him that light up the entire clearing and says, oh, how convenient, with a smirk that belongs on someone who just realized the universe handed him exactly what he needed. Because the Serpent King is still very much alive and very much angry, coiling its massive body around the battlefield, while Jiang Li faces both the monster and the mercenaries like a man with a plan forming in real time. He launches a massive ice lance straight into the Serpent King's skull, and the frozen payload connects with enough force to make the ground shake beneath everyone's feet. The serpent's corpse comes crashing down toward the Bloodwolf squad like a collapsing building, and these fools have to scramble out of the way of a dead monster they didn't even fight because Jiang Li turned someone else's ambush into their problem. Chendong's entire squad stares in absolute horror because this kid just one-shotted a level 29 elite monster, and their brains are physically buffering, trying to compute what that means for their survival odds. And that's when Jiang Li turns to face them with his cloak billowing in the aftermath and casually confirms that yes, he did kill their leader's son, dropping the confession like it's a receipt he doesn't need anymore. Every single face in the Bloodwolf squad goes white simultaneously, because they came here thinking they were the hunters and just found out they locked themselves in a cage with something they cannot handle. Jiang Li lights up with a spiraling inferno of fire magic, eyes glowing red through the flames, and tells them that unfortunately for them, this information is going to be their permanent secret, because dead men don't file reports, and this fool is about to make sure the Bloodwolf mercenary group has a staffing shortage. Jiang Li winds up a fireball the size of a small car, and launches it straight into the Bloodwolf formation like he's delivering a pizza, and the entire clearing turns into a furnace because that spell swallows everything in its path, and one of these Bloodwolf goons is actively on fire, screaming his lungs out because turns out armor does not help when someone turns the air into an oven. Chendong's face is pure panic now, screaming that they're all doomed if this keeps up. And brother, the realization came a little late on this one. So the surviving Bloodwolf members do the smartest thing they've done all day and drop to their knees begging, offering money, gear, everything. Just please spare their miserable lives. Chendong is on the ground looking physically ill because not only did this kid demolish his squad, the fool also just openly confessed to killing the boss's son. And now Chendong's brain is stuck between survival and the realization that his boss needs to hear this immediately. But Jiang Li isn't letting them off that easy because he spots their equipment and casually asks where they picked up such nice gear. And these geniuses start confessing like it's a plea deal, bragging about how they kidnapped silver-ranked people and ransomed them back to their families. This bald idiot keeps talking because apparently his mouth has no brakes, says they killed a man who resisted, stole his bronze garment, and oh by the way, his wife was a beauty even though she was pregnant, and this monster is grinning while he says it. Says she chose death over submission and joined her husband, and Jiang Li just goes indeed with a voice so cold the temperature in the marsh drops about 20 degrees. And then he whispers those 3 words that seal their fate: you all deserve death. That is the most justified kill order I have ever witnessed in this manhwa, and it's not close. Scene cuts to the Golden Dragon Pavilion where Jiang Li is already video calling Lin like a man who just finished taking out the trash and needs to handle the paperwork. Lin asks how the gem setting is going, and this fool just smiles and says smoothly. But actually he's here about something else entirely. He needs Lin to dig up intel on the Bloodwolf mercenary group, and the way he asks so politely while standing in a literal crime scene is genuinely unhinged behavior. Because the camera pans out and this maniac is casually making a phone call surrounded by unconscious Bloodwolf bodies scattered across the ground like discarded action figures while asking Lin to rush the order. Lin nearly chokes because he recognizes that name instantly, and the shock on his face says everything about the Bloodwolf group's reputation. But he pulls it together fast and tells Jiang Li to hold tight while he gets someone on it right away, because Lin is a professional and professionals deliver. Lin warns him not to be rash, but Jiang Li just casually mentions he was ambushed in the wilderness and already dealt with them, dropping it like he's recapping a mildly inconvenient errand. The defeated Bloodwolf member lying face down in the dirt conveniently provides the name. Their squad leader was Chendong. Lin recognizes Chendong as the deputy head of the Bloodwolf mercenary group, a bronze-level professional, and immediately warns that these psychos are absolutely going to retaliate. So what exactly is the plan here? Jiang Li heard the strongest in their group is only peak bronze and says he's confident he can handle that, but his real concern is collateral damage to the people around him, so he wants to strike first. Lin is absolutely eating this up, calling Jiang Li a man of deep loyalty and righteousness, and then starts unloading everything he knows about the Bloodwolf group because this little round man is essentially a walking intelligence agency with a bow tie. 6 bronze-level professionals in their ranks with the rest all above black iron, and Chendong was specifically sent to investigate the boss's youngest son getting bodied. Lin even admits that facing that many bronze fighters at once would be rough even for Jiang Li. The strongest of the bunch is the boss himself, a man named Li Xiaoqian, and keep your eye on that name because he's about to become very relevant. Li Xiaoqian is a level 39 Greystone Knight whose entire build is defensive, and Lin warns that a war of attrition against this walking fortress would be a losing play because this boss is basically a raid boss with a health bar that never ends. Lin mentions the Bloodwolves are currently stationed in the mountains and reassures Jiang Li that he still has time to prepare, but Jiang Li immediately asks what they're doing out there. Turns out they were commissioned by the Wang family, and Jiang Li nearly loses it because he recognizes that name immediately as one of the 4 great Wang families of Jincheng. But Lin tells him to relax because it's just a hired job, no alliance. The Wang family's eldest son awakened as a star beastmaster, and they're spending a fortune hiring mercenary groups to find Earth Dragon eggs for him. And here's where Lin goes from information broker to actual ally because he straight up volunteers to help Zhang Li take on the Blood Wolves and invites him to come to the pavilion first to gear up. Zhang Li accepts without hesitation. They head into the fusion chamber inside the Golden Dragon Pavilion, and this place is giving endgame content because there's a massive stone mage statue in the center of a glowing ritual floor. Lin explains that skill slots are limited and low-level spells naturally get phased out over time. So the pavilion built this fusion chamber where mages can combine spells they already know into entirely new ones, which is basically the crafting system nobody told Zhang Li about until now. One catch though, fused spells cannot be fused again, so you better make smart choices the first time. Lin hands him the fusion tome and asks if it's his first visit, and yes it is because this moron has been brute forcing everything until now. Zhang Li decides to test it with the basics first, feeding his D-level fireball and D-level arc spells into the fusion circle, and the system confirms both inputs like a vending machine that dispenses violence. And out comes a brand new D-level spell called Lightning Ball, crackling with purple energy while Zhang Li stands in the middle of the ritual circle looking like a kid who just found the secret menu. He notes that the effect is similar to casting both spells at once, but the real value is that it only takes up one skill slot instead of two, and the grin on his face. Zhang Li thanks Lin for the fusion and the intel, offers to offset the cost with the equipment he brought in, and then mentions he's got one more thing to discuss. See, the problem is that setting a gold-level gemstone is basically gambling with priceless materials, because even Master Wang can't guarantee the success rate. The Thunder Crocodile leader's teeth would boost the odds, but that boss has been ghosting the entire marsh like it's avoiding a subpoena. Lin laughs and says he already thought of that, and then a woman walks in carrying something glowing purple, and excuse me for a moment because the pavilion attendant just returned looking like the artist specifically designed her to end careers, and I am personally under attack right now. Turns out this is special bait that can supposedly lure the Thunder Crocodile leader out of hiding. Master Wang originally asked Lin to find it, but since Wang already broke through to gold level, the boss monster probably won't take the bait from him anymore, which makes it perfect for Zhang Li. Zhang Li is thrilled and calls Lin a lifesaver, and Lin confirms that the Blood Wolf equipment Zhang Li brought in more than covers every expense with surplus left over, so this absolute menace is actually turning a profit from the people who tried to ambush him. Lin wishes him success, and Zhang Li grips the bait with sparking purple energy dancing around his fingers, looking genuinely excited for the first time in a while because our boy has a shopping list and he's about to check off every item. Back to the Thunder Marsh where Zhang Li tosses the bait into the swamp water and starts clearing monsters in the area while he waits for the main course to show up. The swamp water starts bubbling and crackling with electricity and something very large is waking up down there. A bolt of lightning tears out of the water and splits the sky open because whatever just took the bait is not happy about being summoned. And Zhang Li's face lights up with pure excitement because finally, after all that waiting, the Thunder Crocodile leader has appeared. A level 33 boss Thunder Crocodile leader erupts from the swamp, all scales and lightning and rage, and Zhang Li calls it a cunning crocodile for hiding this long while readying his staff because the hunt is officially on. The crocodile lunges with jaws wide enough to swallow a sedan and Zhang Li meets it head-on with his Shadowfang staff glowing purple, trading the opening blow with a 33-level walking disaster. He activates light body technique and his feet blur into motion, launching himself above the crocodile's entire body like gravity is a suggestion he chose to ignore. He brings the staff down with enough force that even an iron-ranked professional would struggle to block it, and the impact sends shockwaves through the marsh floor. Zhang Li locks eyes with the beast and tells it that it's quite good at picking opponents, which is possibly the most disrespectful thing you can say to a boss monster. But today you picked me, and he hurls a barrage of ice projectiles into the crocodile's hide like he's speedrunning a boss fight with zero respect for the difficulty rating. The Thunder Crocodile roars and thrashes as the ice connects, electricity sparking off its body in every direction because this thing is not going down quietly. The collision of ice and lightning creates a blinding explosion that swallows the entire battlefield. Zhang Li barely survives the counterattack by popping light armor technique just in time, and even then he's panting because that crocodile nearly collected him with a lightning tail swipe he did not see coming. He declares this is where it ends and summons two massive ice lances that spiral around him like a frozen tornado before launching both at the crocodile's face. The lances slam into the crocodile's body one after another, and each impact cracks like a cannon going off. The crocodile tanks every single hit because this walking tank's skin is absurdly thick, and Zhang Li realizes brute force from the outside is not going to cut it against this overgrown lizard. So if the outside doesn't work, then this absolute psychopath decides they're going from the inside, and the look in his eyes tells you this is not a bluff. He charges straight at the crocodile's open jaws with a fireball cooking in his hand because apparently walking into a monster's mouth is just a Tuesday for this lunatic. He rams his staff into the beast's throat and yells, "Here's a little gift for you," while detonating fire magic point blank inside its mouth, which might be the most disrespectful way to fight a boss monster in the history of this genre. The fireball erupts inside the crocodile's skull, and the beast screams because it turns out armor means nothing when the explosion is happening inside you. Zhang Li follows up with a massive slash that carves through the weakened scales while the crocodile is still reeling from the internal barbecue. Then he activates the sluggish technique to lock the beast in place because now that its defenses are cracked open, he's not letting it escape or heal. The crocodile's entire body seizes up as the debuff takes hold and it thrashes helplessly because being cooked from the inside while paralyzed is genuinely the worst way for a boss monster to go out. Zhang Li stands over the convulsing beast glowing with electrical energy and drops the science. Electricity intensifies flame explosions, and the fact that this crocodile willingly opened its mouth saved him quite a bit of effort. He shoves his staff deeper into the crocodile's gaping jaws and thanks it for the cooperation because this man treats boss fights like customer service interactions. And he delivers the final blow right down the beast's throat, splitting the crocodile's insides apart with a single devastating thrust. Level up twice, pushing Zhang Li to 127. And get this, fusing Bone Spear technique with Ice Arrow technique creates Ice Lance technique, which keeps the raw single target destruction of Ice Arrow while adding the debuff from Bone Spear, and it only counts as one skill slot. This man just min-maxed mid-battle. He's already thinking about what other spell combos he can cook up because the fusion chamber basically gave this menace permission to optimize his entire kit into a custom-built murder loadout. The Thunder Crocodile's corpse lies there with its jaw hanging open, and Zhang Li casually asks himself how to handle the materials before deciding to just yank the teeth out, and the size difference between him and this dead reptile is comical. Later that night, Zhang Li is sitting outside Master Wang's workshop in Rosetown, waiting on a bench while the sounds of hammering ring out from inside. This fool actually dozes off waiting because even someone who solos boss monsters for fun still needs a nap after the day he's had. The door swings open and Wang Yun bursts out shirtless and grinning, yelling that it's done. Looking like a blacksmith who just forged his magnum opus and is physically incapable of containing himself. Zhang Li asks how it turned out and Wang Yun just grins even harder and says it's perfectly embedded, not a flaw in sight. And the stat sheet drops. Golden Abyss Staff, Gold Quality, 450 spell penetration, with an additional skill called Demon Mark that imprints a target so the next spell deals 4 times the damage. Zhang Li laughs sheepishly and admits it was his first time ever harvesting materials, which explains why the crocodile teeth came in looking like they were removed with a shovel. But Wang Yun doesn't even care about the sloppy extraction because the staff's spell penetration is already ridiculous, and the materials worked fine, so he hands over the completed weapon like a proud parent. Zhang Li holds up the Golden Abyss Staff with its gemstone glowing crimson against the night sky and says they should be well prepared now, and the calm confidence in his voice tells you this man is about to go to war with everything he needs. Right on cue, a holographic call pops up from Lin, and both Zhang Li and Wang Yun look at it like the universe just hit them with perfect timing. Zhang Li reaches for the accept button because when your personal intelligence agent calls at this hour, it's never small talk. And Lin delivers the payload. The Bloodwolf Mercenary Corps is entering the Earth Dragon's lair tomorrow, location already sent. Zhang Li thanks him without missing a beat because the intel pipeline is officially paying dividends. Zhang Li's eyes go cold and he says it's time to put an end to the Bloodwolf Mercenary Corps. And that right there is the face of a man who spent all day upgrading his loadout specifically to delete an entire organization from existence. Would you want to be a Bloodwolf right now? Genuinely wouldn't. Meanwhile, at the Bloodwolf mercenary camp in the Blackstone Mountains, somebody just delivered the worst possible news. And the man receiving that news is the Bloodwolf leader himself, Li Xiaoqun, standing there in full crimson armor looking like he just got slapped by a ghost. His deputy Zhang Zhe breaks it down. The third brother's last message said he found the murderer of Zhao Qiang, tried to intercept them, and then went completely silent. The culprit is apparently some young mage. Xiaoqun's face goes dark and he growls about how some young mage dares to disrespect the Bloodwolf mercenaries, and the rage in his eyes is genuine because this man just lost 2 people to the same nobody. But here is where it gets interesting, because instead of charging out for revenge like every other villain, this fool shuts it down completely, says the royal matters tied to his silver rank advancement come first, and revenge can wait. Cold, absolutely, but also the first smart thing a villain has done in this entire story. He orders every single member summoned immediately, and boots start hitting the ground because when this man gives an order, people move. The Bloodwolf squad assembles and rolls out, a whole platoon of armored mercenaries ready for war, which is exactly the kind of organized force Zhang Li is about to walk into solo like a maniac. The full formation marches through the mountain pass with Xiaoqun at the front. And this would be intimidating if we did not already know what is waiting for them. And guess who is already tailing them from the tree line like a predator tracking a herd that has absolutely no idea it is being hunted. Zhang Li is pressed against a tree watching the whole convoy pass, quietly confirming to himself that is really Li Xiaotian down there, because this fool is doing recon before he commits to erasing an entire organization. Back with the Blood Wolves, Xiaoxian starts his big motivational speech about all the hard work his brothers have put in because they have finally located the Earth Dragon's lair, and today is the day they crack it open. This moron has no idea he is delivering a pep talk for what is about to become a funeral procession. He promises that once he hits silver rank, he will personally hunt down whoever killed his men and skin them alive, which is a bold threat to make about someone who is currently hiding 30 feet behind you. Xiaoxin goes full anime villain and swears he will make their enemies suffer the worst punishments imaginable, that he will never abandon a brother who follows him, and honestly the speech is not bad if you ignore the fact that everything he is saying has an expiration date of about 20 minutes. And the entire squad eats it up, chanting long live the leader with fists in the air like they are marching to glory instead of marching straight into a wood chipper named Zhang Li. Zhang Li watches all of this from the shadows and decides the play is simple. Follow them in, let them fight the Earth Dragon, and when they are bruised and spent, strike from behind. That is not strategy, that is financial planning with violence. The Blood Wolves enter the Earth Dragon's lair, and standing in front of them is a monster that makes the Thunder Crocodile look like a house pet. This thing is massive, armored in dark scales, glowing red eyes, and Xiaoxin has the audacity to call it intimidating like that is the understatement of the century. Xiaoxin screams charge and the entire Blood Wolf squad rushes the dragon like a coordinated raid party because say what you want about these guys, they move as a unit. The Earth Dragon answers by sweeping through them like a freight train through a parking lot, and suddenly the confidence from 5 seconds ago evaporates. One mercenary gets caught in the dragon's tail and the sound he makes confirms that the difficulty rating on this raid was not an exaggeration. The mages in the back unload everything they have, fireballs slamming into the dragon's face, while the shield bearers try to hold the line, and credit where it is due, this squad has actual coordination. One of the assassin types dashes in low and fast with a blade glowing blue, looking for an opening on the dragon's flank. He unleashes a flurry of slashes so fast the blade arcs leave after images, carving into the dragon's hide with everything he has got. But even after all that, the hooded swordsman realizes the dragon's hide barely cracked, and the frustration on his face tells you this creature was not designed to be fair. The dragon whips its tail around and catches someone square in the chest, ragdolling a grown mercenary across the cave floor like a toy. Now the Earth Dragon is getting angry for real, dark energy pooling around its body as it charges up something that nobody in this cave wants to be standing near. It slams its claw down and a swordsman barely blocks in time, his whole body shaking from absorbing an impact that should have turned him into paste. That is when Zhao Jian steps up and throws out Greystone's shield, tanking the dragon's follow-up attack with raw physical strength that actually earns a bit of respect. He pulls everyone behind his massive hexagonal barrier and tells them to get behind him while he absorbs hit after hit. And okay, I will admit this man is actually carrying his team right now. Xiaoxin calls out that he is going in and tells the squad to watch for his signal because apparently being the shield was not enough. This absolute unit wants to be the sword too. He activates Giant Charge and his body practically doubles in mass as he rockets forward with his spear aimed straight at the dragon's face. The spear tip collides with the Earth Dragon's jaw and the impact sends shockwaves rippling through the cavern because this man just shoulder-checked a dragon like it owed him money. The whole cave shakes as Yaxian drives the dragon backwards through solid rock, and the scale of this collision is genuinely impressive for a guy who is about to lose everything. His men are hyping him up from the sidelines, shouting about how incredible their leader is for soloing this creature, and they are not wrong, but the timing of this celebration is about to age terribly. Xiaoqian roars at his squad to stop standing there and aim for the dragon's eyes because even in the middle of a boss fight, this man is micromanaging. The dragon's red eye fills the frame and it is not scared, it is furious, and the Blood Wolves are about to learn what happens when you poke a raid boss in its weak spot. Magic circles erupt as both the mages and the dragon trade blows, purple energy and spell projectiles colliding midair in a light show that could blind a stadium. The dragon catches Yaoxin with a clean hit and sends him skidding backwards, armor cracking under the pressure because this thing is tired of playing. Xiaoqin gets launched into the cave wall, and for the first time he actually looks like he felt that one, his grip on his weapon barely holding. He screams at his men not to stop attacking because if they let up for even a second, this dragon is going to wipe the party, and the desperation in his voice is real. And that is when the sky inside the cave turns orange because fire starts raining from above, and it is definitely not from any Blood Wolf mage. Xiaoyin screams asking who cast Rain of Fire, and then his brain catches up. Enemy attack. Zhengli descends from above, wreathed in flames like an airstrike with a personality, casually noting that the Blood Wolves are well trained, but what a pity, because today every single one of them dies here. And there he is, our boy Zhang Li, silver hair glowing against the fire behind him, looking like the final boss that nobody in this cave prepared for. He declares nobody leaves alive and launches into the fray with his staff crackling, because this lunatic timed his entrance for the exact moment the entire squad was half dead from fighting a dragon. The disrespect is immaculate. An ice lance rips through the air like a guided missile headed straight for the Blood Wolf backline. One mercenary fires an arrow at Zhang Li and it just bounces off his light armor technique like he tried to hurt a tank with a paper airplane. This fool did not even flinch. The remaining Blood Wolves scramble to face him, screaming about how someone dared to sneak attack their group, but the fear in their voices tells you they already know they are outmatched. Zhang Zi makes a smart call and tells Yaoxin to handle the dragon while they hold off this kid, and the deputy charges Zhang Li with everything he has. Zhang Zai goes full aggression with his blade carving through the air, but Zhang Li parries every strike like he is swatting flies at a picnic. Zhang Li closes the gap and delivers a hit so clean that Zhang Zai's entire body warps from the impact, and the size difference here means nothing when the smaller guy hits like a freight train. Zhang Zai is livid now, powering up with red energy crackling all over his body, screaming about how he is going all in because Zhang Li just embarrassed the deputy leader in front of his own men. He plants his foot and launches forward with killing intent pouring off every inch of his body. Zhang Zai brings down his weapon, screaming die, and for 1 second it looks like he might actually land something meaningful. The strike connects and the whole cave lights up from the collision, but Zhang Li just tanks it through his barriers without budging an inch. Xiaoxian sees an opening while Zhang Li is engaged and charges in with a grin, thinking he caught the kid off guard and taunting him about how he thought he was so good. He calls for everyone to surround Zhang Li because numerical advantage is the only card these losers have left to play. But the Blood Wolves trying to close in can barely keep their composure because the casting speed and raw power coming off this kid should not be physically possible for a young mage. Zhang Li stands in the middle of the chaos surrounded by beaten mercenaries and calmly tells them they do not need to know who he is. They just need to remember one thing. He is the one who will take their lives. and he says it while launching ice projectiles in every direction like a walking natural disaster. And that line delivery with those visuals might be the hardest thing we have seen from this man yet. An ice lance catches Xiaoxin right in the torso, and the big man actually stumbles as his own men scream boss from behind him. Xiaoxin catches an ice shard to the gauntlet, and the shock on his face is priceless because his armor just cracked from a spell that a young mage should not be able to produce. Zhang Li taunts him about being the so-called Greystone Knight famous for his defense, and the fact that he knows Yaoqian's title means this kid did his homework before showing up to delete him. Xiaoqian finally puts it together. This kid knows him, broke through his defense, and is the same young mage who killed Zhao Yang and Chen Dong. The realization hits like a second punch because now this is personal. Xiaoqian declares that since Zhang Li walked into his hands on his own, they are settling every grudge old and new right here right now, and he actually sounds confident, which is adorable given the scoreboard. Zhang Li matches the energy perfectly, says he planned on doing the exact same thing, and lights up a magic circle underneath his feet that turns the whole area emerald green. The ground under the Blood Wolf's feet suddenly liquefies into swamp water and they start sinking, scrambling to figure out what is happening while Xiaoxin recognizes it as swamp technique. Zhang Li says it is not over yet and starts charging a lightning orb that crackles with enough voltage to light up a small city. Because this maniac layers spells like a DJ stacking beats, Xiaoxin cannot believe what he is seeing and screams about how this kid is casting 2 spells simultaneously, which should not be possible, while his own man warns him the lightning ball is about to blow. Would you like to guess who is standing in electrified swamp water right now? Xiaoxian calls it fancy tricks and braces to block because his pride physically will not let him dodge a spell from someone half his rank. The lightning detonates right on top of him and his shield technique shatters like glass in a microwave because the combination of swamp water and electrical current just multiplied the damage beyond anything his defense was rated for. Zhang Ze gets caught in the blast radius and his entire body seizes up as lightning courses through his armor, and the scream that leaves him tells you the deputy is done. Xiaoqin staggers through the lightning, muttering about how the dragon already drained him and this kid is bleeding him dry. He decides it is time for the ultimate measure because nothing else is working. He activates absolute defense and encases himself in a massive stone fortress that erupts from the ground like a mountain being born, ice and rock forming an impenetrable cocoon around his body. The stone shell seals completely and it is genuinely massive, a fortress built for one man hiding inside it while the world burns outside. Xiaoxin is in there calculating that Zhang Li must have burned through most of his mana by now, and this defensive state also recovers his own stamina, so if he stalls long enough he can activate Giant Descent and end this. Smart plan from a desperate man. Zhang Li stands outside the stone prison and calls Yaoqin a shrinking turtle, because the dignified leader of the Blood Wolf mercenary group is literally hiding inside a rock and hoping the problem goes away. But Zhang Li grins and says this skill was prepared exactly for this moment, and he activates Demon Mark from the Golden Abyss staff. Remember that weapon skill? 4 times damage on the next spell. This is why he built this loadout. He aims the staff at the stone fortress and fires a single concentrated beam of energy directly into Xiaotian's absolute defense because brute force does not matter when your spell penetration is 450 and your damage modifier is ×4. The beam pierces straight through the stone like it was cardboard, and the explosion that follows lights up the entire cavern. And that right there is the sound of the Blood Wolf mercenary corps being permanently removed from the server. Is this the coldest one-man wipe we have seen in this manhwa? Genuinely might be. Cut to a few days later back at Rose Town and the Jinlongbo Pavilion, where Lin is briefing Zhang Li on the aftermath. The Blood Wolf mercenary group was found completely wiped out in the Earth Dragon Cave. Eyewitnesses describe a mage in a black cloak, and Lin tells him he is about to be famous. Lin assures him his actual identity was not exposed, but since the Blood Wolves terrorized so many people, half the region wants to personally thank whoever deleted them. Oh, and the public gave him a nickname, Black Mage. That is his street name now, and Zhang Li stares at the newspaper like a man who just realized his anonymous rampage gave him a reputation he did not ask for. He sighs and says he hopes it will not cause him any more trouble. And Lin just laughs because they both know that is not how this works. Infamy does not come with an off switch. And right on schedule, the door swings open and 2 women walk in asking Zhang Li to team up for the professional trial competition. And I need a moment because the purple-haired one in the white outfit is devastating my ability to think clearly. She is built like the artist drew her with malicious intent, and the orange-haired one next to her claiming she was here first only makes this worse. Zhang Li is sandwiched between both of them as the orange-haired one demands to know when he met the purple-haired one, and this fool is nervously laughing while 2 certifiable baddies fight over who gets to partner with him. This absolute virgin has no idea what to do with this situation, and honestly neither would I. He laughs it off and says this trouble seems unavoidable. And he is right because the Black Mage just went from solo carry to the most fought over party slot in the region, and the professional trial competition has not even started yet.